I'd like to reconvene the meeting for the St. Mary's County Board of Education for Wednesday, May 22nd, 2019, and we will begin with the pledge. Oh, our flag's kind of hidden.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Board reports. Slade, get your last one.
Is
Wow,
my
us.
last one. I can't believe it. I've been here for a year and it's flown by. But it's been a wonderful experience. I've been so blessed to get to know all of you and serve on the board. So thank you. You've all been very wonderful. The last event that I attended was Student Recognition Night at Luncheon High School. It was on Thursday, May 16th, 2019, and it was to present awards to students across SMCPS for an array of different activities. This ranged from, like, how young were they? It was basically as low as you could think to high school.
Elementary school.
Elementary school, yes. They got a little bit of everything. It was great to see a lot of familiar faces and seeing people be recognized for things that they were passionate about and things that they really cared about. And I hope to see that continue for years to come. Thank you.
So I know we've all been busy going to sometimes 2 and 3 functions a day. Been having a great time doing it. Last evening and also today, I went to St. Mary's College. The Fair Lead 1 group has the opportunity, the 10th graders, to go see what college life is about. So they get to sleep in the dorm rooms. Yesterday they went to some, I guess you would say, like little seminars to learn about the college, and they got a tour of the college. Today they learned about financial aid. The kids were having a great time. Last evening when I was there, the music was going. They were all running back and forth to different rooms, and visiting their friends. And I went with them over to the pool. So they got to experience a little bit of that college life. So I think it's just a really great opportunity for a lot of these students to see what's out there and to, get that drive to say, I'm really going to do well in school, and this is what I want to do for myself later. So, and thank you for Sarah Cooper, who's the counselor at Fair Lead 1, who coordinated all this, and all the teachers that were there with the students and stayed up with them last night. So I'm sure they're tired today, so had a great time.
I attended the law enforcement appreciation luncheon several weeks ago, and every year they have that, honoring our officers in their service. Most of the county commissioners were there, and most of the board members were there. It was very, very appreciative on my part to be there to honor the officers that basically put their lives on the line to protect us. And that's all I have.
Okay. Let's see, yesterday, Dr. Smith and I went to Baltimore to the state board meeting where they recognized the 24 teachers of the year from all of the counties in Baltimore City within the state of Maryland. So we went up there with Miss Jennifer Cord and her husband. She is a 5th grade elementary teacher at White Marsh. So I think she got a taste of what her cohort is going to be like. And they outlined, I think, several of the things that they're going to do throughout the year. And also, for those of you who don't know, in addition to, it's like kind of like Leadership Maryland. They go to different parts of the state and they learn about different regions and areas. But then they also really kind of come together as a cohort, and then they advise, I guess would be a good word, MSDE on any changes or things that might or might not work within the schools. So it's a pretty diverse group this year, meaning that there's a lot of elementary school teachers, there's special ed teachers, music teachers, there's an art teacher, there's a culinary arts institute teacher from, I can't remember which county she was from, but it's probably the most diverse, rather than just like, a bunch of high school teachers or middle school teachers. It's really from a lot of different disciplines. So I think she's going to have a fabulous year. I'm very excited to hear what she has to bring back to us and to have her represent St. Mary's County. So, Mrs. Washington, how are you?
Thank you. I attended the Academy of Visual and Performance Art completion ceremony, which was yesterday at Chopticon High School. It was a wonderful ceremony. 99% of the students in that program will be attending college, so that is good news. And one student is taking a gap year. They're going to colleges like West Virginia University, Ball State University, Regents, College of Southern Maryland, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, Slippery Rock, Temple, Towson, Seton Hill, University of Delaware, so that's good news. And I want to thank the visual and performing arts staff for doing a wonderful job with our students. They completed the program. I want to thank Mr. Todd Burrows, supervising for instruction for fine arts, Kim Summers, the principal at Chopticon, Denise Mandis, Dr. Mayer, who brought greetings on behalf of the superintendent, because he can't be everywhere, though he tries. He's triple, double, quadruple booked. So it was a wonderful ceremony. So the students, congratulations to them, and I look forward to seeing them at their commencement for Chopticon. Thank you.
My colleagues and I have been spending a lot of time at the Tech Center over the last few weeks, from the Tech Gala, where students shared projects that they had done. They showcased their work, to the first ever Forest and Career Tech Center signing ceremony for I guess about 10 students in the electrical program that all have jobs waiting for them. They've already been hired, or some that are going into apprenticeship programs, and so they each had an opportunity to come up to be recognized and to sign their letter of intent. It is a nationwide program to have a signing ceremony, but this is the first time that the students at the Tech Center have participated in that. And finally, the Tech Center had their commencement ceremony, and the number of students across this system who avail themselves of the opportunities at the Tech Center, whether they are going on into employment, they're going to the military, or they're going on to 2 or 4 year institutions. And especially the number of students who are dual completers and who are leaving us with significant amounts of college credit is just extraordinary. And so congratulations to all those students, not all of whom were seniors. Many juniors were finishing 2-year, 1 and 2 year programs. Some will be coming back for an independent study year next year, but it is from the remarks that were made and the students that I spoke with, the Tech Center is near and dear to all of them and provided a wealth of opportunities that I think a lot of people in the community would be surprised to understand exactly what our students are getting there. It's just wonderful. So congratulations to all. It was a terrific time.
And I will say that Principal Egan did share with me on Friday that 100% of students enrolled in programs at the Tech Center completed them this year. So 100%. That's as good as it gets. Let's see. So yeah, we also had the Esperanza Middle School National Junior Honor Society, the staff recognition ceremony at Great Mills High School, fairly culminating. Law enforcement, we already said that. The Becca Scholarships Award ceremony held at the Forest Center. We were at the Forest Center a lot. The Forest Center commencement held at Leonardtown High School. The student recognition ceremony held at Leonardtown High School. Leadership Maryland back at the Forest Center. On Monday, I had the privilege of speaking with the Southern Maryland Athletic Conference, the SMAC Board of Controls, as they do their culminating meeting at the end of the year. where they were recognized people for their excellence, and specifically we recognized Dr. Andrew Roper, who is retiring from the school system after being with us, I think, about 25 years, and having accumulated over 40 years in education. Well deserved, and he certainly will be missed. Then we did the toy luncheon, and last night we had the GIS Junior Capstone. We had the NJROTC End of Year Awards ceremonies that went through. It's been busy. I feel like it's been a busy time.
We've spent a lot of quality time together.
I'm not clapped out yet, but I'm getting close to being clapped out. We still have a whole week of clapping, and we're going to have some clapping this evening. So without any further ado, I think I shall conclude and put all of that in the record. We've been real busy. We're going to be busy still. Back to you, Board Chair.
We're going to honor Lake now.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Do I stand now? Or do I sit and not feel it?
So shall I? I actually wrote some stuff down, Lake, just for you. First of all, to your parents, Mr. and Mrs. Meadows, thank you so much for sharing Lake with us this whole year. I know that their senior year is so jam-packed and every minute is precious, so you gave her to us for hours and hours, and thank you so much. And although perhaps you might be ready for her to leave in their senior, I don't know, I'm sure not with Lake. I'm sure every day is sunshine, but you're going to be sorely missed. She has been such a force and a benefit to us. She is always so poised, professional, and personable. Whether she's presenting her GIS capstone on the impact of student loans from a national perspective, or bringing welcoming remarks to our student recognition event, or talking to all of the students in the summit, she has it covered. Drop the mic and hope you don't have to follow her. She is a presenter. I really would like to thank her specifically for planning and preparing and presenting and coordinating all of the work that we did this year with the Slack group. I think that advocacy and the focus that they had this year really came from your leadership first. I'll tell you, your quick smile and your positivity have helped me and the board focus on what matters most: kids and the joy we have in working with children. We are in the business of educating because we love it, and we love it because we get to work with students just like Lake. You're a brilliant light that we will sorely miss, but we know we can't keep it here. It's time for you to set out for the next phase in your life. Salisbury University is getting one of our greatest gifts, and they better appreciate it. Or else you can let me know, I'll drive out and set them straight. Thank you very much for all you've done this year, Lake.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wood. So as we all get older, as adults, we tend to forget what it's like to be a high school student or a middle school student or an elementary school student. And throughout the course of the year, like, you did remind us all of that a number of times. So I appreciate your input, your viewpoint, and I'm going to echo what Dr. Smith said. Your performance and speech at the summit was just out of this world. And to have the adults who were there, who are in the communications industry as professionals, right, compliment you on how, and you did it without notes, you did it without a speech. Well, you had a speech, you told us you all had a speech, and then you said you weren't going to do the speech, so you just rolled with it. So to have those people who work with communications and getting a message out for a living, for them to make statements like that is just a tremendous compliment to you. So the board, we appreciate everything that you've done for us this year. I know you've kept Rita in check over there on the table. So sometimes difficult to do, so that's going to fall to you now next year. So might need some tips, but we do appreciate it, and it's been a joy to work with you this year.
Thank you so much.
So-
You make me cry.
We do have a couple things.
So you have parting gifts, come on up.
Come on.
So the first is your very own lovely certificate of recognition. So you've seen them handed out, that's your very own.
That's right, now you have yours.
But wait, there's more. There's a lovely pencil set, because we believe that people still use pencils or pens. And so you'll have that, you can put that on your desk and be reminded of us. But wait, there's more. There's beautiful, lovely flowers. Be careful, don't drip on them. And
then from the board, we do have just a gift for you to help give you a nudge off to college.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of it.
Do you have room to pile it over there?
I can.
okay, all right.
I think. Okay, so Dr. Hall, you're next. I have it committed to memory, so you're ready to go.
Just very quickly, could we ask Lake to perhaps introduce our
Oh,
our
please.
incoming student board member?
So Nagina Ori, if you would stand, please. I actually have some words to say for you. So, I'd like to take a moment to pass the torch and introduce you all to the new student member of the Board of Education. I am pleased to introduce you to Miss Nagina Ori. She attends Leonardtown High School with me, my girl, and is incredibly active in her community. She volunteers at St. Mary's Hospital. She was a member for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society Student of the Year for a Cure campaign, where she helped to raise over $400,000 for her cause. She's an avid member of clubs in schools such as Student Council Association, the National Honor Society, and SMASC, which is the St. Mary's Association of Student Council, which is where we first met. I could go on and on so much longer with all the list of her accomplishments. And Nagina, I wish you very well in your journey as the next student member of the Board of Education.
Thank you, Will.
Can I say a couple things before I
Yes,
sit down?
sure.
Okay. I'd just like to thank all of you so much for this position. It's really changed my life and outlook on the way that I see things. When I moved here, I was very shy and I didn't say much. But after being up here, I've gotten to just kind of get up and inspire people, which I didn't think that I had the power to do. And I remember when I first started this, I did the one thing I wanted to do was be able to touch people and make them feel like they have a voice and that they're welcome in our society. And the other day before I was getting ready to graduate, there was this young man, and he's a freshman this year, and I've been working with him as I'm one of his mentors for our freshman academy over at Leonardtown. And he came up to me, and he's been working on our for our Slack committee as well.
Yep.
And he said, you've been such an inspiration to me, and I didn't know that I had the power to speak and that I had the power to say what's on my mind and advocate for myself. And I didn't know that I'd ever be able to touch someone that way. So I was very blessed in that sense. So thank you so much. I appreciate you all. We can move on.
And may you continue to do that. That's the way to start a board meeting.
Ready?
Hey, Dr. Hall.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I am here to do just a very brief presentation about our summer meal programs and the partnership that exists, and we have some of our partners, and it'll just be very brief. So tonight is about Lunch and Learn, and it's also about lunch at the library. So there are 2 summer programs, and if you remember last year when we had the summer start, it's going to be a long summer, and we were really worried about food insecurity, what was going to happen. So we reached out to the library and some of our other partners to see if we could put it all together. And now that we're in year 2 of doing this, it's amazing when you get something that starts to work, you get to the second year, you can start refining. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But you can see the schedule right there. And so the library is going to start us off in the pink, 5 days a week. They're going to provide nutritious foods through our food service department. And that will give our teachers time to leave and to get the building started cleaning. That's for you, Mr. Whidden, to make sure that everything is good. And then July 8th, the school system will pick it up, except for Fridays, and the library will come back and cover on Fridays. And then that will go until mid-August, and as our teachers are coming back, the library will do it again. So the really important message is, from the very beginning of the summer to the last Friday before we start, there children will be able to get a nutritious meal and have some wonderful enrichment activities. So here are the dates and the times, the Lunch and Learn Summer Program. Just some important things to know. We'll do a press release. This will be on the website. We'll send it home on flyers and those kinds of things. But that really just says July through August is when the school systems are doing it. We have 2 locations this year, Greenview Knolls and Lexington Park. I will tell you that both principals, Dr. Scow from Lexington Park and Mrs. Fowler from Greenview Knolls, have been absolutely wonderful about letting us come in and use the buildings for the summer. And Mrs. Fowler, who is new to Title I but not a new principal, she is going to really let us kind of take over Greenview Knolls and make it a full-service summer school.
Principal Fowler is here tonight. How lovely, as is Dr. Scott.
Yes, yes. So
Thank you for joining us
Yes.
tonight.
So, and really the decision for that was we can maximize the use of food services by having the Title I Summer School funded through 21st Century will be there. Head Start Summer School will be there. It will be a large Lunch and Learn site. So it just makes sense. Dr. Scow has some camps from Parks and Rec, and that is a very densely populated neighborhood. It's adjacent to the library. It made sense, but we're really grateful. And then lunch at the library. The library is going to just start at the very beginning of the summer. They're going to cover the Fridays when we're closed, and they're going to pick it up at the end, and they will work through food service and nutrition as well. At the library, they have nutritious bag lunches, fruit cups, and milk. The meals are free for the students. The parents can eat for $4. If we have a parent who can't afford it, just like in the past, our Friends Social Services are here tonight. They have stepped up and said they will pay for it. And usually those families are working with the Judy Center, so we have a very discreet way of handling that, and then an invoicing process that we develop to work between our finance system and theirs. In Lunch and Learn, our summer program, they get a nutritious meal. There are planned enrichment activities. There's lots of partners. We take little trips around and some excursions, if you will. Here's the staffing for the school part, Lunch and Learn. Greenview Knolls, we're going to have 2 Judy Center staff. There are 4 Judy Center people. 2 Judy Center people will be at Greenview Knolls every day, 2 safety assistants, just to make sure that it's very safe and orderly. The Judy Center grant fund is paying for the safety assistants. Then at Lexington Park, we do the exact same thing. 2 Judy Center staff, 2 safety assistants. This is the list of partners, and it continues to grow. And, it's interesting how you think you're never going to solve a problem, and you put smart people around a table, and you come up with a schedule, and now we're at a point of refinement. So some of our major partners are here, and I'm going to bring them up for just if we can highlight them for just a few seconds. But before I do that, does anyone have any questions they would like to ask?
Enrollment, do you have any idea on the enrollment?
It does vary. It's completely open to anyone in the community that wants to come in and eat. Last year, they served more than 3,000 meals. So it was used heavily.
Okay.
So you say anyone is eligible for
Anyone.
whether they attend public school or not?
Anyone can come in, yes.
I didn't see, does the library have an enrichment component as well in the effort of continuous improvement?
They-
I see lunch at the library, but not a learning component.
They do. They have, computer access. They have story hours. They don't necessarily have the gym capability that we do in the public schools. But yes, they do have some nice opportunities, and they certainly have lots of books if people want to read.
The library.
Yeah.
It's an enrichment center in
Yeah.
itself.
Yep, there you
And
go.
Dr. Blackwell is with us, so.
Yep.
Got it, like at the schools.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to thank Dr. Scow and Mrs. Fowler for letting the system use your school for a site, and thank all the partners that are here for
Thank you.
what all that they're doing, because it's a lot of people that make this work, and you
spearheaded, got everybody together to do this, and it's a wonderful program because in St. Mary's County, we want our students to be fed over the summer. And I want to thank you for getting all the partners together to make sure this happened, because that's a concern of the board with the long summers, especially students on free and reduced lunch. How would they be able to eat during the summer? And so, Dr. Smith, we answered that call because no one will be turned away.
No one, no one. Very good point. Thank you, Mrs. Washington.
How many years have we been doing this
Well, you
program?
know, I was thinking about that. Mrs. Binkley and I were talking about that. We probably started with a very tiny lunch and learn that no one really knew what it was, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And over time it built, and you know, it grew and became more popular. And then last year with the calendar, it really became kind of, what are we going to do? And we got there. And now this year it has really been easy. And I'll go through the partners that are here, and then we have, you know, just one more thing. And I didn't put a slide in because we don't have it completely finalized. But in addition to all the partners that you see, we're working on the possibility, hopefully this year, but maybe next, of having mental health therapists available. So
Wonderful.
that is
Wonderful.
you know, again, it's a work in progress. We're not there yet, but we're working on it. So if there are no other questions, may I ask the partners? So partners,
do.
when I call your name, you're just going to come up, and your organization, can you just stand up in front of the pillars, please? Okay, ready? So actually, the truest partner, Wendy Binkley, is our Judy Center specialist, and she has been with me every step of the way. We also have from the Judy Center tonight Ian Kirshner, who's the early childhood liaison. And there are 2 other people who work in the Judy Center that were not able to be here because it's May and it's busy. Fernetta Carson, the program assistant, is just amazing, and so is Carrie Horch, our family service provider for the Judy Center. And as I said, they'll be staffing it the entire summer. So then we have Miss Charlotta Swoodley, who works in my department as the Title I Family Engagement Supervisor. So she'll be in and out all summer long. Our 2 amazingly accommodating principals, and I mean that sincerely, ladies, Mrs. Fowler, Janet Fowler from Greenview Knolls, and Dr. Rebecca Scow from Lexington Park. Very grateful for both of them. St. Mary's County Public Schools Environmental Center, our instructor, Margarita Rocco. I cannot say enough about our library. You know, they are our truest partners. Mr. Michael Blackwell, the director of the library. And then with him, Amy Ford, also from the library. And Jill Hutchinson is not able to be here tonight because it's May. But I just want to say that no matter what we ask them to do, they help us. And, you know, we've run a lot of conscious discipline, professional development this year. We had 150 parents at one of them in the evening at the library, and they are just tremendous partners. From Food Service and Nutrition Extension from the University of Maryland, Miss Caitlin Petrillo. And then from the Department of Social Services, who have graciously agreed to sponsor adult meals when necessary, Bob Freer. And Carrie Machoto from Social Services was not able to be here tonight. Representing the Early Childhood Action Committee, that's part of local management, Mr. Kelsey Bush.
Mr. Bush. We got a bow tie too. Thank you.
And then from the health department, just tremendous partners as well, Miss Tammy Lowy. And there are other partners that were not able to be here tonight. The Church Without Walls Outreach Ministry has been very kind and gracious with financial donations. But you know, guys, we're feeding hungry kids from the day school lets out till we open back up, and it's all because of you. So thank you very much for all that you do, and we're just really, really proud of this shared work. So thank you.
can you indulge me and just kind of push in a little?
Bunch up like grapes.
Bunch up like grapes. I was complimented earlier today on my ability to wrangle people for photo shoots, so.
I'm sure you can.
Slide it out, get it out of the way. There we go. Look at that. Now you can actually see the screen. I'm supposed to have done that.
Yes.
You go ahead first.
Got him.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I failed to mention, our food service folks are out of town this evening, but obviously we couldn't do it without them. And they've been just extremely helpful and cooperative. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
If a moment of indulgence. Before we move on with the agenda, those people who have business before the board and are looking forward to a rousing conversation about relocatables and so forth, great. We take no offense if you depart. You can watch it on YouTube later. As long as you like.
Okay, we have a public hearing on.
Goodbye, Ms. Ford.
On the facilities development policy.
We have no speakers?
No speakers, okay, so that public hearing is closed. Do we have public comment? No public comment, okay. Consent agenda, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mr. Whitten, lighting replacement at Leonardtown High School.
The exciting lighting replacement.
It is for me.
It's aluminum. It's right. Yeah, no, it's
Illuminating.
Everybody has their passions. Mine are just a little.
Jim. Jim's on
Good
point.
fun.
Yes.
Good fun.
So where's the button? There we go. So this evening I'm here to talk to you about lighting replacement, stadium lighting replacement actually at Leonardtown High School. So, and here to request your approval for a contract to Music Sports Lighting LLC in the amount of $366,550 for the replacement of the stadium lighting at Leonardtown High School. The existing wooden stadium lighting poles at Leonardtown High School were originally installed in 1978, and the lighting fixtures were renovated in 1998. The current poles and fixtures have exceeded their useful life. In 1998, during the renovation, there was an option in the contract to replace the poles and the lights, but it was not affordable at the time. The background, basically we have existing poles, or as you can see, wood. They're like power poles you would see on the side of the street. The lights are metal halide, very hard to get a good coverage on the field and an even lighting level. The contract information, the focus of the contract is to replace the stadium lighting at Leonardtown High School. It will come with a 25-year warranty, which I was very impressed by. That covers everything. That's the luminaires, which are the fixtures themselves, metal corrosion, because it will be a metal pole, lamps, fuses. There's LEDs don't have ballasts like a traditional lamp would. They have what they call a driver, and it covers the driver, which is. And the way it's designed is very nice too. It's at ground level, so you don't have to use a hoist to get up all the time to repair. So less danger for the track that we put so much money into. It will reduce the energy use a bit and maintenance cost a ton. We are, after the approval, will pursue any kind of rebate we can get with SMECO also. The new installation, actually I thought was very neat. It looks straightforward, but what they do now is they would take the old pole out of the ground, and this is to the point of how quick the installation should be. It should be within a week. The long part is having the poles manufactured and welded. They build all of them custom. They take the pole out of the ground, they dig a hole, and then the concrete they don't pour in place. It's a sleeve that's put in place in the ground, and then the metal pole expands the concrete sleeve outwards to get its anchoring capacity. And it will be designed for the wind rating in the area. As you can see, the other components on the right-hand side of that picture is the inverter or the driver box, which will be located close to the ground, and then the luminaires are at the top. The only thing in between is wire and a metal pole. And if they do go bad, it's under warranty, and they have to provide the labor to test. This is showing an aerial of the, and everyone knows, but there's 4 poles in the 4 locations. They look like sticks on this map. You can see the shadows of the existing poles. The poles will be going back in the same location, which will allow us to reuse a lot of the underground electrical runs, which will be, which are large enough, of course, if the energy consumption is less. And that was about it. The procurement, we went out and we're piggybacking on this one. We're writing another cooperative contract, and this is through the Keystone Network, Purchasing Network. It is encouraged through Board Policy DJC, DGCR regulation. It is permitted by Maryland Annotated Code. And if there's no questions, we're recommending the board approve the agenda item as presented.
I have one question for you.
Yes.
When do you plan to start the procurement? Or the actual project itself? Like, when do you plan on putting them in?
It was 60 days. It will be done before, it will be done right after, it's been discussed, and we will be able to accomplish it before football season starts.
Okay. And do you know how long it takes for them to settle, or is there no settling process? It's just once it's in, it's done?
No, they drive them into the ground. I went down and looked at an installation going on at St. Mary's College in their new stadium. They're using the same installation technique and the same manufacturer.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What's the lifespan of the lights themselves, like the light bulb, I guess you would say?
The LEDs,
Yes.
they're guaranteeing them for 25 years. I don't know that there's reliable data yet on how long they will go.
Okay.
But the luminaires, the way LEDs are constructed nowadays, from what we've seen, is they're not so much a bulb inside a fixture as it is a fixture and a bulb together. When you replace
Right.
it, you replace an old thing. So when in the previous slide, when I said that the luminaires were guaranteed, for 25 years, or covered under the warranty, that includes the fixture and the bulb. So
Okay.
that's the whole component. Sorry.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
The existing lighting system, is it functional now?
It is.
Have you had any unusual breakdowns in the last 20?
One of the polls is starting to concern us. We've talked to SMECO, and they've come out and they have more experience with the wood-type poles than we do. Sorry, I should have prefaced that. We've asked them to come out and look at it, and they've advised that it needs to be replaced within the next 5 years. They wouldn't. The current poles are not, as far as I can tell from looking at the 1978 prints, designed for the current wind ratings. Of course, they wouldn't be.
Right.
And we, in the maintenance department with the schools that have these high-rise poles, we hire a truck once a year after the all-spray season, and go up and clean them and replace the bulbs and ballasts as needed.
So the life cycle of the existing system has reached its end, in your
Oh,
opinion?
yes, sir. The poles are, yes, sir, way past the end of their life.
And of course, there might be a safety issue if one of those poles should fail.
Yes. There's the one that I've called SMECO out to look at with us is yes, sir. It's on the visitor side.
That's all I have.
Thank you. I'm very encouraged by the reduction in the energy costs. So just, with the change. And then I'm assuming with this new technology, before, if they're the old lights from back in the day, you had to turn them on at like 4:30 in the afternoon in order for them to heat up and then actually have light by 7 o'clock. So I'm assuming you don't have that time frame anymore.
No, there's 15 minutes. There's 3 light settings. There's an off, there's what I would call a twilight, and then there's a, for football, soccer, track.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
No questions, thank you.
Who will do the install?
Lighting, I want to get the title right. It's Lighting Maintenance Incorporated out of Towson. I believe it was Towson. So Muzak, under their contract with KPN, they actually solicit the vendor to do the install.
Okay.
So if you were looking at a general subcontractor arrangement, Muzak is the general and
Okay.
lighting maintenance, and they're out of the Baltimore area.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the current fixtures are 41 years old. I think we've gotten
Yeah,
good
plenty of
use,
time.
good value out of them. And, you know, as I've said before, if we continue to defer projects because we still have, you know, an indeterminate, you know, within a short period of time, the end of the useful life of something, we're gonna find ourselves with a huge bill to try to overcome. So I appreciate that you are keeping track of where we are with all of our various equipment and things that may need to be addressed, and that you're bringing them to us in a timely fashion. When you said that you were looking for 50 to 85% decrease in cost for electricity and maintenance, do you have a figure on what we're spending for electricity for the lights we currently have?
No, I do not.
Okay.
From that's an energy perspective, and I apologize, I don't have it. From a maintenance perspective, we spend at least, I would say, $1,600 a year, easy.
Okay.
In parts, the rental, we rent one time for the high lift for all 3 high schools, which is another $1,000.
Yeah, so I really think that this is a good investment. And lastly, you mentioned that the for lack of a better word, controls, or the box is going to be down at the ground instead of having to be up on that lift. I assume there's some sort of locking device, or something that will keep only those who have a reason to be in that box access to it.
Yes, ma'am, there is.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
That's all I have.
Plus, who really wants to tell Leonardtown they cannot have evening football games?
No,
Next
well,
year.
the quality of lighting at Leonardtown has been commented upon for a while. So this will be nice.
It'll go from about, with a 30-foot candles to about 55-foot candles, which is the standard. So that's quite a bit brighter. The pros play under 90-foot candles, which is just outrageous, but it'll be quite a bit brighter.
I'm sure
They'll be
that
happy.
students and staff will be happy about that.
Parents are going to be thrilled, especially with the new football coach.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I guess maybe perhaps one last question, and that is, because this is going to be that much brighter and there are some homes that are in the relative area, do you anticipate that the lighting is going to in any way disturb the people in those homes?
No, ma'am. There's been a lighting study done already. The new fixtures, not only are they built to be energy efficient, but we've heard about light pollution. They're also built with scowls to make sure that light hits where it's supposed to and cuts it off very directly. So, made from the reflection of the field, but not from the fixtures.
Well, and the aircraft that fly over routinely, I'm sure that.
The older fixtures they don't cut the light off very well, and you get a lot of bleed off and a lot of what they call light pollution into the sky as well as neighboring areas.
Great, thank you, that's all.
okay. May I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the use of Keystone Purchasing Network Contract, KPN 2019-0101 to Musco Sports Lighting, LLC, in the amount of $366,550 for stadium lighting replacement services at Leonardtown High School. The board further authorizes a construction contingency of $33,450.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Howe?
As a point of reference, when we did the parking lot lights and we changed all halides out to LED, we were planning on $150 to about $200 per light per year.
Substantial.
Substantial savings.
Wonderful.
Make sure I'm on the right one. I have 3 with you tonight.
Yes, you do.
To start off a little bit, I do send regrets from Dr. Walker that he's not here. He is attending his son's graduation from college tomorrow, so we wish him well with that. With me tonight, our project coordinators from the Design and Construction Office, Paola Laino and Todd Whitlock. So if we have any questions I can't answer, they are here to back me up. And I just want to say that over these 3 projects we've worked on the last couple of weeks, their attention to detail and dedication to this is incredible. So I appreciate it. So we're going to start with Hollywood Elementary School's Relocatable. What we're talking about tonight is the relocatables for Hollywood and how they're going to fit in with the HVAC renovation, and then a need for Evergreen for capacity as well. So for Hollywood Elementary School, the relocatable that we're looking to purchase will be required swing space for the new project that we're going to be doing, the roof and HVAC project. The project should be, if approved tonight, will be in place for the beginning of school, which is important for Ms. Laino as she starts her project and for the school. That project is expected to last 18 months. The recommendation is for the purchase of a new unit. It's 1 year old, which is a good deal for us at a cost of $389,063. They did do their due diligence and they looked at the possibility of leasing that unit for 24 months, and it came in right at $320,000. So a very good investment for us to have a unit that in the future can either serve Hollywood Elementary School in a continued use, or it could be used as swing space for another project in the future. As we're all aware, our aging fleet is getting a little more difficult and challenging to move, so updating some of our units to have that capability in the future is very important to us. The need for additional space, Hollywood Elementary School being one of our first elementary schools that we built, does not have a lot of the new spaces that we build for pullouts and programmatic spaces. If you've been there, they have those project areas in the houses that they can use, and they're really using those for a variety of programs that weren't in place when that building was originally built. English language learners, school psychologists, the speech pathologist, military and family life counselor, which is huge at that facility. They're not available to do some of the other things that we need to do. Some of our staff that comes in and works on intervention and grade level testing doesn't have spaces as well. So when we look at this unit, it's going to give them the flexibility in terms of phasing of the construction and providing these spaces. And then when the project is complete, if it's left there, then it will be able to provide for these resource spaces as well to allow for more flexibility in the building.
I have a question. Are you saying, so the HVAC project is going to displace the use of these 4 things, of the space that they're using right now?
So is part of the roof and HVAC project.
Right.
We have to phase the project, and when they're working in that particular area, which is going to be 8 classrooms at a time, they have to move 8 classrooms out of the building.
Okay.
So with the relocatable that they currently have there, plus this additional 4 classrooms, they'll be able to move 8 classrooms out at a time. No work will occur in an area where it has students under it, so we need to make sure that we have space available. Once the project is over and the relocatable remains, they can then figure out how to best use those 4 classrooms to allow them to have the space back in the building for use as it was originally intended.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, and maybe I'm not following. So the relocatables are going to use to displace the students while the HVAC is being used?
Yes.
During construction. And afterward, then we are going to use the relocatable for the English language learners, the school psychologists, and
Or however they
whatever
need to
they feel.
reconfigure to make it work.
Okay.
It gives them additional space, yes.
Okay, so that's what I wasn't, I mean, like, I didn't think the HVAC replacement was all in one spot at the school, which is what
Right.
made this slide confusing with the 4 items at the top.
Right, and there is an additional slide that will show some of the timing of
Okay.
that. Might make it come into perspective a little better.
Did I understand you to say that those 4 items, the English language learners and so forth, that when the school was originally built, that none of those
Those
things
programs
existed?
existed.
And therefore, they have taken over spaces that would have perhaps been used or envisioned for something else?
Yes.
Okay.
And one of the things that I know that they're challenged with, and we've looked at in the past, is breakouts and how we test now. How we test is completely different than how we tested when this building was originally constructed. So making sure that they have the room for adequate testing. I mean, when we built schools originally, we were building computer labs to take tests. And that's not how we utilize those rooms any longer. So this gives them the flexibility to make the classrooms work, the project areas work, and give them the flexibility to house students during construction as well.
Great, got it.
So this is an important piece of this. The staff, in doing their due diligence, found a contract that is in place with Baltimore County Public Schools that they would like to utilize. This is on its last extension, and then this contract expires on the 31st of this month. Hence some of the urgency of getting it here and getting it done, as well as getting it ready for school. It was used extensively by the public schools. The delivery will be at the end of August 2019, and it is a very competitive bid. In researching, Baltimore County Public Schools is putting out this bid. They've been researching and looking at it every day to see when the new price is out. It isn't out yet, but it goes into effect May 1st, and we understand that it will be a significant increase over this cost.
June 1st?
June 1st, sorry, June 1st. So it is beholden of us to try and get this done as efficiently and effectively as we can. So utilizing this contract versus using the one in June will save us money and ensure that the project will be delivered on time. The contract award would be to Modular Genius Incorporated at a cost of $389,063. It will attach to the existing, so where you see the blue hatch will be where it goes. It will attach to the existing modular complex that is already located at the school, and it will have the accessible ramp and stairs that we've been currently using, the metal that we've transitioned to. The layout of it is 4 classrooms with a hallway in the middle and then the restrooms at the end. It's a 64 by 54 unit. The corridor is fire rated. Electric connections to the main distribution panel will be included, as well as tying in the data and the PA system to the school. We've got some exterior views, and that is the type of ramp that we would be utilizing.
Does the ramp come with, is that included in the 389K?
Yes, the ramp
Okay.
is included. And some interior views. We've talked about this a long time. The relocatables that we have, the older ones, they're not as modern and current as these look like classrooms. They've come a long way with the manufacture of these units. And this is the aluminum porch and accessible ramp. So this is the phasing plan for the HVAC project, and the relocatable classroom switches. When they move, those 8 classrooms will happen during the break, least disruptive time to the students. So those will happen over those 4 period of breaks. And as you can see, we're going to use 8 classrooms at a time. The first phase will be in the central portion of the school, and then you can see phase 2 starts September through December. That puts us in place to get this unit in place and start the new school year with this plan being in effect, to have the 8 classrooms out. You have a winter break, and then a spring break and a summer break. So 4 moves, and then at the end of that, at phase 5, the project would be completed at the summer of 2020. So the recommendation is to approve the Modular Genius contract for use at Hollywood Elementary School for a 4 classroom unit for this school year.
No questions, thank you.
So this is going to stay at Hollywood.
Yes.
That's the plan, not to move it later on?
At this
or-
point, it is the plan to keep it. Now, as we know, demographics change, and if there was a need, we would come back to the board and ask for the moving of the unit. But at this point, it is intended to stay at the school
Okay.
afterwards.
All right, thank you.
Warranties, what kind of warranties are you getting on that, do you know?
I'm going to defer that to Paul.
I don't need an exact number, but I just was curious, what's the life cycle of these units? About 20 years, if that?
You mean the warranty on the project or the warranty on the unit?
On the units,
Oh.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't do that.
We can double check that with you, but the units last for a very long time. We have some that have been in the system. They're the state units that have been with us for 45 years.
Really?
Yes. Now, at that point, as Mr. Whitlock would tell you on some of the ones he's looking at, they do need some substantial work. But they do last for a very long time. But we will get you the exact warranty on this specific unit. We'll get that information back to you.
And staff
I
have had
was
to
impre-
rebuild some of those.
Yes, so between Mr. Whidden in maintenance and design and construction staff and the state, because those are state units, they will participate in those. Mr. Whitlock and I were talking about this. We have a roof design that we utilize now that is very effective, and the state participates in the maintenance and updating of those roofs as needed.
I was impressed with the delta between purchase and lease. I'm surprised that the lease was so high, 24 months, it's $320,000, I believe.
Yes, and if you look at that, that's been kind of the way we've looked at this before, and it's always been to the benefit of the school system to go ahead and purchase the unit.
Right.
The lease, they are popular, and some counties lease entire schools when they're doing construction. The investment that they put into those, then you look at that, they pull the unit away and there's nothing back for the investment. So I think for us, as we look at our aging fleet, I think this kind of a purchase during a construction project is a good opportunity for us.
Last question. I was just kind of curious about swing space. You don't really have a great demand for swing space like you do, in like federal government. Do you have any provisions for swing space other than what you're proposing to purchase right now? Is there other
You mean in the
units?
event of something going wrong in a school where we would have to?
Well, I'm
Or at a
just thinking, kind of hypothetically, if we still have a lot of units, correct?
Yes.
Could we use those for swing space, or are they all in use now?
So we do have some relocatables that are available for use, and it is something that when we talk about a project like this, we do talk about it. The cost of taking a unit from one school, moving it to the new school for construction, and then moving it back if it's needed back there is going to start to exceed the costs
Right.
of purchasing new. 2 years ago, when we were looking at this, you can pay $75,000 to $100,000 just to set the unit in place. And if you do that twice, you're now at $200,000, and
Right.
you've still got a used unit that is now going to need work because you've taken it apart twice.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
I asked my question during the presentation, so thank you.
You did a great job of putting your presentation together, and it answered every question that I had. Thank you.
I know that, not the next presentation, but the one following is for the contract award for this project, but also for a similar one at Park Hall, and yet you're only bringing forward the need for relocatables at Hollywood. Do you anticipate needing additional space at Park Hall as well? And if so, how do you plan to address that?
So Mr. Whitlock is working on the project that will be coming forward to you in the near future. That one, you opened?
We opened that bid today. It's a state unit that we own
Okay.
that we're planning to relocate.
And I know that the site concerns at Park Hall are
Very tight.
very tight.
Very tight site. And that's, in many instances with a lot of the schools, that's where we're getting, is we have maxed out the opportunity to place relocatable. So the staff gets very creative, and I'm very impressed with the use of the site at Park Hall. So that will be coming forward to you in the very near future.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
And the only thing I'd like to say for this particular relocatable, the 4-classroom, this one with a center hall, does really give the feel of a communal space. The kids can come out and talk to each other. That's at Fairleigh Academy.
Yes.
That's so much better than what we currently, I don't even know how old those are. When you're talking about 40-year-old units, I think I know the ones of which you speak. So that's why we're buying as opposed to leasing. We like to hold on to our stuff.
Yes, we do. It's a good return on the investment. And the configuration of that hallway and the classroom and the restrooms, it's all self-contained.
Yeah.
Right, and I was in the one at Fairleigh Academy too, and it is extraordinary in how different it is,
And feels.
and how clean and open and airy and very much a different feel than our older relocatables. So they have come a long way.
Yes.
Okay, may I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the use of the Baltimore County Public Schools Contract MBU 508-14 for the purchase and installation of a 4-classroom modular unit complex for Hollywood Elementary School from Modular Genius Incorporated in the amount of $389,063.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Let's look at the one for Evergreen.
Okay. So we found out the answer to the warranty question.
You're so good.
Yes, they are very wonderful. It's 1 year, and that is industry standard. So it's a 1-year warranty on the unit. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
now we're moving on to a relocatable for Evergreen Elementary School. This is Mr. Whitlock's project. As you know, we've been talking about enrollment at Evergreen Elementary School for quite a while. And unfortunately, the capital project that would have relieved that has been removed from the CIP at this time. We are still monitoring, and when we have sufficient capacity to warrant the project, we will reinstitute that project. But in the interim, enrollment at Evergreen is right around 776. They have a state capacity of 644 and a local capacity of 614. We do have existing relocatables there. But we are requesting is approval for a 2-classroom modular unit that will supplant some of the spaces, again, that they need for program and activities given the large enrollment that they have at the school. It is a cooperative purchasing agreement with Baltimore County Public Schools. The contract, again, is the same contract, ends the end of this month with Modular Genius. This contract would consist of purchasing a modular classroom in place at the end of August, really close to the beginning of school, but we've worked with the school staff and they are prepared for how that would look at the beginning of the school year. This contract would be for $245,278. Again, this one would attach to the existing of the modular complex that we have with the same ramps and stairs that we talked about in the last presentation. It's a 2-classroom unit. Accessible restrooms are reachable at the end of from the vestibule. It's 64 by 28 feet. It will have a 200 amp volt feeder new panel, and the data and PA systems again will be tied back into the school. This is more of a configuration of what we're typically used to seeing, but again, newer unit for us. So we would be requesting approval of the contract for a new unit for Evergreen Elementary School for this upcoming school year to meet capacity needs.
I have no questions, thank you.
How much does this relieve the enrollment, to kind of, I know we have 776 students, but I mean, how will this relieve some of that as far as the classroom?
It's an additional 2 classrooms, and the plan that the principal has brought forward works, I would say, for the next year to 2 to 3 years, depending on how enrollment grows. If we get back to a period where we're growing faster, we're really going to have a serious discussion about Evergreen and how we proceed forward. This
Redistricting.
buys us some time.
We're going to have to talk about redistricting.
Yes, we are. And we have, what we have budgeted, and we've talked about this in the capital plan, we have a capacity study, a county-wide capacity study planned for FY 2021 that will address Evergreen as one of the primary sources of our need, along with the middle school and high school. But we're going to have to look at it as a comprehensive county-wide. If there's going to be no school, how do we proceed forward?
All right, thank you.
Just looking at the cost, it appears that the $245,000 for the 2 units is pretty close to the 4 units at $389, I think it was. So my only question is are we talking the square footage of the space is about half of what you proposed earlier? In other words, we're getting about the same amount of space for the amount of dollars? That's my question.
So we originally would have liked to purchase 2 of the
Yeah.
units that were the first unit, but they didn't have them available. They had 1. So we are going with what their current stock has in place so that we can have it in place for the beginning of the school year. But had we had a preference, we would have preferred to have bought 2 of the 4 classroom units.
Okay, so, do I understand what you're saying then in terms of space, square footage space? We're getting about half the space
Yes.
because we're paying by
It's a
half.
2 classroom unit versus a 4 classroom
Yeah,
unit, yes.
but the spaces, I'm looking at cost
These
per
are
square
paying-
foot.
Cost per square foot, yes.
And you're telling me it's the same, or close to it.
It,
Yes,
the calculation of cost per square foot.
It's close.
it's close, yeah. That was what I was looking for.
Yes.
Thank you, that's all I have.
But also within the confines of the time constraint we're in, you have to execute and execute with known inventory,
Yes.
correct? So it's very much like, it was Memorial Day blowout, and you got to take what's on the dealer's lot.
Yes.
And we'd like to have the big Ford, but.
You have to get the Prius.
And the other piece of this is the area where it is at Evergreen again,
really
the
challenging
2
to
classroom
afford.
fits really well into that space.
We're basing on a contract too, so the price is, we're getting the price of the contract.
Yeah.
But we get a deal on the Hollywood because it's a 1-year unit too, so we're getting a discount additional
as well.
that we're not getting on the other ones. And on Evergreen, we are fabricating the new unit
It's
to
brand new.
match
It's brand new.
Evergreen too.
So we're getting like last year's 2018.
We're getting
This
the-
is a 2000, it's smaller, but it's the 2019.
The 2019 version, yes.
Okay. Kathy, Mary, do you have anything?
No questions, thank you.
Yeah, I do. How many relocatable classrooms do we have at Evergreen currently?
There are 3 2-unit classrooms down there.
So we have six classrooms already. We'll have 2 more for 8. When you look at the state-rated capacity of the school building itself of 644, and we have 776 kids there, so we're 132 students over the state-rated capacity and 162 students over our local capacity. So Evergreen, without these units, is already somewhat bursting at the seams. And when you drive through that area and you see the houses that are going up and the townhouses that are going up, that they're just throwing up like crazy, and they are occupied. So it's a question of you build it, they'll come, and they are. So I know that redistricting is not we don't do it often with good reason. I'm glad that you're able to bring these relocatables in so that students can stay there, but I know that we will get to a point where the number of students there is going to outstrip the capacity of the cafeteria.
The infrastructure pieces, yes.
Yes.
Those core spaces, the gymnasium, the cafeteria, art, music programs, so, the library. It's just not Evergreen, and we've known this. It's Carver and it's Park Hall. It's that whole corridor that we wanted to redistrict. So it will be something that we have to look at, and we do have some capacity at other schools. Now, granted, it might be in relocatable, so then we come into that question of how do we disperse the students when they may be going to a relocatable. And I think, Ms. Allen, what you said is true. It comes to those other core pieces that we have to have the room within that school to accommodate. We reach a tip point when we can no longer add relocatables to a facility.
Exactly. You wind up starting to serve lunches before 10 o'clock in the morning. So thank you for the information, and thanks to all for the work that you put in. I think you've done an outstanding job to make sure that we're getting the best deal that we can, and the ability to relieve overcapacity or over enrollment, if you will, in one place, and to meet the needs of the construction project that's going to go on in another. So thank you. That's all.
Okay. May I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the use of the Baltimore County Public Schools Contract, MBU 508-14, for the purchase and installation of a 2-classroom modular unit complex for Evergreen Elementary School from Modular Genius Incorporated in the amount of $245 and $245,278.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
I know that installing these relocatables, sometimes there's a lag time in being able to get electric up to it. Do you anticipate that in both instances that those classrooms are going to be available from the start of the year, especially at Evergreen, where, I mean, we're talking about the ability of students to be in a classroom?
So it is a challenge, and we have worked and will continue to work with the principal. There is a plan in place that if the unit was not available for the very beginning of school, of how they would accommodate the two classrooms, and then they could make a switch.
Great,
So
thank
it
you.
is in the works. We are already in the process of thinking about SMECO and trying to get that taken care of as well.
Excellent, thank
They
you.
work with us. They know what the need is at that time of the year, so they work with us very closely.
Wonderful, thank you.
I'd like to add something. In terms of modular, permanent modular construction, what Mrs. Allen said was really very important is that it's not going to get any better. With people moving in, we're going to have permanent overcrowding of our schools. I had the, I guess you call it good fortune, of putting in modular schools at the Lower Township District near Cape May, New Jersey. And we, in a period of 3 months, installed about 5,000 square feet of modular space, and it was integrated to the existing building, which meant all of the brick cladding of the modular units were put on a foundation. And by the end of by the time the students came back to school, we increased the space of the school substantially, and from the outside, you couldn't tell a difference. So I'm kind of throwing a challenge out. Maybe in the future, we could use this option. And I could talk to Mr. Witt and Mr. Hardwick about this, because it is an option. It's a very economical option in which you're integrating new space without going into major construction.
And as
expenditure.
part of the facility study that we're going to do, that would be one of the recommendations that I would look at. And it's been on our radar. Charles County has done that. They've built large complexes, and they've done it during construction, and they've housed students in it. So it's an option that we have. For us, land always becomes the issue. So we have to look at what capacity we have on the sites to do something on that large scale. But we can definitely include it in that scope. Anything else?
Nope. Going on to the
Okay.
HVAC.
So we will move on to the Park Hall in Hollywood HVAC renovation and roof replacement and supplemental funding project. So Mr. Hartwick and Dr. Walker have been here on several occasions to talk to you about the project as we've moved forward. And they've been challenging projects. The construction market right now is on the rise. Availability of contractors is small, to say the least, right now, so there have been some challenges with the project. The Board of Education did approve 5 firms as pre-qualified to submit for the multi-step procurement process back in March of 2019. We did put out for bids originally, and those bids came in April, and they were over budget. 15% for Hollywood and 6% for Park Hall. We had some conversations with the state about other counties and what they had done and some other opportunities we might have. And pursuant to your vote on April 24th, we did use COMAR negotiated bid option. We rejected the Hollywood and Park Hall bids at that meeting. You authorized us to go back and negotiate directly with those bidders that had previously bid on the projects. Time was not in our interest at that point in time to try and rebid the project in its entirety. So staff, the project coordinators, worked diligently with the engineers to come back with a revised scope on those projects that they could negotiate. Some minor modifications were made to those specifications. The invitation was sent out from all the responsive bidders originally. Park Hall Elementary School came back, and it is $280,000 more than it originally was. However, That's based on the base bid and alternate 8, which is new unit ventilators, which were put in at no additional cost. So the bids we're going to talk about have new units. We had talked about replacement, but both bids we were bringing forward to you to discuss tonight are for new equipment. In talking to the contractors on Park Hall, part of it is the market at the time we find ourselves. The roofing contractors have had work at this point. The HVAC contractors have had work. So there's that additional piece as to what subcontractors we could get on that bid. And then at the same time, the market is flooded. The suppliers know that, and the cost is continuing to rise on supplies. So that project did go up $280,000. On Hollywood Elementary School, we have a reduction of $313,000 from the original bid, so it's down from 6.9 to 6.6. And it does allow for the alternates to get us the aluminum roof that we originally wanted, as well as the replacement of the fan coil units versus the refurbishment. So we did a lot of analysis looking at the cost per square foot, because as we know, the money we're talking about is 3 years old. So the actual cost for Hollywood per square foot came in at $114.48 a square foot. We were budgeted at $105.80 a square foot. So we're working on a deficit of $8.68 a square foot. I looked at what we would get if we were to, say we had reverted the projects and we were to have asked for them new. In FY 2020, we would have gotten a budget of $126 a square foot, and we would have been under budget, and we could have afforded the rest of the things that we had wanted to do. Conversely, for Park Hall, when you look at that one, it came in at $134.85 a square foot. We were budgeted at $123, and if we were to do it now, it would be $148 a square foot. So given the financial challenges that we're faced with 3-year-old money, I think the renegotiation, while not exactly where we would have liked it to have been, was very successful in terms of bringing a project forward that we can come to you with a solution on how we can afford to move forward. I did call, we've all talked to counterparts across the state. There are 2 other counties that are in the exact same situation that we are. Projects are coming in up to 42% over budget. So the multi-year funding of systemic renovations is causing the same issue we're having at other counties as well. So for Hollywood, the base bid savings of $433,000 after negotiations, we are recommending alternate 10 for the original aluminum roof and alternate 11 for the replacement of the fan coil units versus refurbishment. We're recommending the award of a contract to Scheibel Construction. Sorry, I have to tell you about the tie, sorry. We had something unusual happen on this particular one. When you added the base bid and the alternates, we had a tie between Scheibel Construction and Tuckman Barbie at $6,616,000. In investigating how to break a tie on a low bid, we contacted the state and we referenced COMAR. There's actual COMAR reference for tying a bid. The first way you break a tie is you go to the prime contractor who is in state versus the one that is out of state. So both Scheibel and Tuckman Barbie are in state, Maryland companies. In the event that you can't break it that way, you then go to the minority business. We had set a goal of 11% for this particular project. And Tuckman Barbie with 9.1% in state and 1.9 out of state hit the 11% mark, and their minority business participation in state at 9.1 beat Scheibel's 0.45. So the tie would be broke to Tuckman Barbie. The financial summary for the project for construction plus base bid and alternate 10 and 11 is $6.6 million. Construction contingency at $313,000 is sitting right at about 4.7%, a little less than what we would have originally put into the project. And we do have our design and construction administration at $530,000. It brings the total project to $7.4 million, $7,459,000. Based on the budget that was approved in FY18, we have $3,555,000 in state funding and $3,343,000 in local funding, which left us $561,000 short. In conversations with the state, and I know how many times I've sat at this table and said, once the state budget is approved, they will not make a change.
Right.
And they won't make a change to their portion of how they see it done. However, what we can do is realign our allocation within the FY 2020 budget. We can go back and increase the state share. So we have $4.6 million. And what we did is we went back and we realigned the funding and brought it to an additional $326,859 in state funding in FY 2020, which goes with the remainder of the money that was due us. That allows us to then take, for both of these projects, we're having to do it, we're going to reduce our lowest priority project by the $545,000. Going to defer that to FY 2021. We don't need it in FY 2020 this year. We can make it work. So we're not losing any money on either project. We're just shuffling how we're getting it between FY 2020 and FY 2021. So while I've always sat at the table and said the state will not allow us to change a budget, they will allow you to realign your own money to another project. So that is what we are proposing to do.
What is the lowest priority project for 2021?
Green Holly's elementary school switchgear and HVAC project is just getting into design now. We're getting a good batch of the money in July, so it allows us to start the design, and then in FY 2021, we're still getting money from them. But we're not going to be able to start construction next summer in the time frame we would need as much as we had cash flowed. So we're just going to defer it to the following year, and we'll be perfectly fine in terms of cash flow.
So the money that was set aside then, what you're stating for Green Holly is then being moved for this.
We're reallocating it to these two.
But then where do you then get the money for Green Holly?
I will increase instead of asking for 1.2 million, I'll ask for 1.7. Well, that's actually 1.8 million in FY 2021. All I did was take the money and shift it to the right and make it part of our allocation that we'll ask for in FY 2021.
So does that increase our magical percentage?
No, it doesn't. It keeps us within 4.6 million each year.
No. I mean, from the allocated money from the state.
No. What we did is
Okay.
when we took the total contract, we went back and it is 57%. They're paying still for 57% of the project.
Okay.
We just reallocated some of our money between our own projects
Mm-hmm.
to make the cash flow work.
Okay, but what I'm asking, I understand what you're saying. The bucket of money that we're supposed to get under the new rules,
4.6 million.
4.6
yes.
will not change.
No.
Okay.
We are just shifting within the 4.6.
I understand that. I just wanted to.
We were hoping it was going up.
But
Oh, I wish, but no, that statement still holds true. Once approved, the state will not give you additional money. You can reallocate your own money, but they will not give you new money.
Okay.
And that would be new money. So the $326,859 will be reallocated within our FY 2020 request so that we have it in time for construction. And we'll be seeking a local budget amendment for this project of $234,141 in money from existing projects, and I'll go over how that budget transfer works. But we went to our own projects and we found some additional funding that we could use locally from projects that were at the point of being closed out.
so we're not returning in the CIP money back to the county. We're going to
We have to give it,
for this one.
we have to do the money to
We
give
have
it
to give
back and
and
give
then
it.
they give it back to us.
Yes,
Right,
but
okay.
we're not asking the county for any additional funds. We're finding them within our own projects.
Gotcha.
So both at the state and local level, we solve this project problem with money that we had within existing projects.
Due to cost savings.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So for Park Hall, the lowest bid did increase by $280,000 after the invitation to rebid. We are recommending alternate number 8, which is the replacement versus the refurbishment of the unit ventilators. And we, as we talked about, we did have low availability of subcontractors for the roofing on this project when it rebid. Same configuration, the project with a construction contingency of $318,000, which is 4.56%, again, under 5% for a contingency. With the local, comes to $7.8 million. We have 7.2 currently. $670,551 deficit. Reallocating FY 2020 state funds in the amount of $359,320, and seeking a budget amendment in the amount of $311,231. So on the left side, you'll see the amounts that we need. and it comes to locally $545,372. Where we're proposing that money come from is the Captain Walter Francis Duke project, $25,372. The Dinard roof and HVAC is a current project request that we have. But given the amount of cash that we have currently and what we're getting in July, we're going to defer $120,000 of that from our FY 2020 request. We're going to defer that to a future year. It gives us plenty of money to do the design. We have the AE cost of what it costs us for a year for both of these projects, so we know we're going to have enough cash. So we're not reducing that project, we're deferring that allocation. And then the Piney Point roof project is complete. We've held on to a little bit of money that we need, $40,000, but we can free up $400,000. So the steps that we need to take for each project, for both of them, we're going to approve requesting the additional funds from the IAC out of our FY 2020 request. We're going to seek approval for requesting reallocation of an existing local CIP through the FIN reserve from the county commissioners. And then we're going to ask that you approve the awards of the two projects contingent upon final approval of those two items. That allows us to meet the deadline that we have to have the projects under contract by May 31st. So the state will look at a conditional contingent approval as an award of contract. So that allows us to proceed forward. So the next steps for us would be, if approved tonight, we already have in the works, the letter has already gone to the state asking them for the reallocation of the funds. They have a meeting tomorrow that they're going to review it and ask us if they need any additional information. If they don't need any additional information, it would be on the June 13th IAC meeting for them to reallocate our funds. Sitting on my desk, ready to come to you if approved, would be the request to get on the commissioner's agenda for a June 11th for the authorization for the additional funding for the budget amendment. We put the money back into the reserve, so there's two budget amendments. One goes into the reserve and then one back to the reserve, back to us. In addition, both project coordinators are currently working on the contract awards to have those in place so that we can move forward with potential letters of intent to go to the contractors to let them know that it is a contingent approval at this time. So those are all of the steps that we've taken at this point to get us to a point where we can satisfy the state's requirements and get the projects ready to go as soon as possible. So I know I presented a lot. If you have any questions.
From the bidders that you selected, have you worked with any of those construction companies before in previous jobs?
So Jay Scheibel is a mainstay, has done a lot of our work. Tuckman Barbie has not done work for St. Mary's County Public Schools, but they have done considerable work in the state, and they are currently the contractor that is building the library for the commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any unforeseen costs that, I mean, because like this is down to the dollar, but are there any unforeseen costs that we need to prepare for just in case?
So that's what we hold the contingency for.
Okay.
In a perfect world, I would have loved the contingency to have been closer to 9%, but I think through, and if I have the statement, let me know. I think through the due diligence of working with the contractors, I think we feel very comfortable with the bids coming forward. If we have something that does come up, we do have the contingency. And I think one of the things we've talked about is looking at that contingency. If we can hold the project as close as we can, some of the things that we were not able to pick up, maybe we can come back and pick them up at the end. But it is a tight budget.
And did you have to redesign very much in order to fall within this budget?
From the original scope of what we did, yes. For instance, one of the things we did, we went from a 4-ply roof to a 3-ply roof with a cap sheet. So there were some concessions that were made along the line, and there were some things that were alternates that we would have liked to have done that we're not able to do. I think in the future what we can talk about is if they're not able to be done now, they are independent pieces that can come back at a later time, like for instance, replacing the fuel tanks. That is something that we can do. We have a mechanism to do that in the CIP if we have to come back and do that in the future, and we can't get that done during the course of the project.
Okay, thank you.
But this bit doesn't have any refurbished parts to it.
No, this is,
See, remember the first one
The
did.
first one did,
yes.
right.
So this is
They were all
replacement
refurbished.
versus refurbishment.
Park Hall, you see the lowest bid was increased by $280,000 after rebid. I don't quite understand it. Was there a scope change? Obviously a scope change, correct?
No, so the bid went up due to the availability of, or the lack of availability of subcontractors. So when the contractors went to bid the project, roof work was already out, contractors had already taken their projects for the summer and for the year. So the contractors that were available raised their prices for the roofing work, which was passed
So
on to us.
the scope hadn't changed? at
Scope
all.
did not change. It was a lot to do with the availability of roof contractors.
I see. Now, the bids, the two bids between Tuckman Barbie and Schneibel, originally was identical bids, is that correct?
So this, when they renegotiated, if you take the base bid plus the two alternates, they are tied
It's almost incredible. I mean, right to the dollar?
to the dollar, yes.
That's amazing.
Well, it tells you that they were, when they
Sounds
came
like
back,
collusion to me.
when they came back,
No, don't quote
they
me.
sharpened. Well, and it's really different because
Don't quote me on that. I'm sorry.
Tuckman Barbie had it on base bid. But when you added the two alternates, which we wanted, Scheibel on the on alternate number
8?
Well, and you have.
did
that's-
not put a price in because they said it was included in their base bid.
I see.
11. So they did not quote a price because it was included in their base bid. When you add those two in, they both come to $6,616,000.
Yeah, I've never seen that in my career.
The bid tabs are in your,
I know what the numbers are, I'm just saying.
I can tell
I
you-
have never seen that in
I can tell you in my 29 years here, we've never had that happen.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, they go to the tiebreaker.
Had to go to the tiebreaker, which I did not know, but was investigated and we found.
I
out
did
we're
not
doing
know
it.
that either, and
think
I'm
of
like,
it
well,
this way,
there you
this is
go.
just a unique project. This is the second thing then.
Well, it tells you the
that we've had to-
competitiveness of those two contractors and it tells you we got a good price.
Right.
That they're the same.
Yeah, I'm not arguing the numbers, I mean, the price, I'm arguing, it just seems almost
The
incredible.
rarity.
It is very rare.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Well, and it tells you that Comar has a provision for it, so it's clearly happened at the state level on numerous occasions, so.
Anyone
That's
else?
all I have.
I do. So the Piney Point roof, the reverting $400,000, that's a pretty significant amount
Yes.
on that project. Do I recall correctly that Mr. Hartwick did that in this way because they weren't sure what they were going to find when they started peeling everything back, and so we had a larger than normal contingency.
Yes, we did.
Which is one of the reasons we're able to revert this. And then the only other question is, normally when we return funds to the Commissioner's Fin Reserve, we have to take a vote to do that. But we're not explicitly voting on that, or are we implicitly doing so if we approve this project?
Okay, so the motion, there's two motions. One is
Right.
for Hollywood and one is for Park Hall. And it is contingent upon funding of $326,859
Right.
from the interagency and approval of $234,141 budget amendment by the Commissioners of St. Mary's County.
Right, but
Right, I think Kathy's point is that when those projects are typically closed out, we vote on the closeout amount of those projects and then sending it back to the county commissioners. But I think the difference
So budget
here
amendments
is
are there.
that
Yeah.
we're sending it back, but we're really not.
okay.
You know, like.
I understand what you're saying, I just want to make sure that
I'm
we're
talking to Scott because he's
covered.
very confused right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's going to the county commissioners is an action to revert and then reallocate,
At the
which
same
would
time.
be under my signature after your direction.
The two budget amendments, you should have access to the two budget amendments that are there. One is taking it, sending it back, and one is bringing it
Yes,
forward.
so, although it doesn't explicitly state it within the recommended action,
Right,
the
that's what
supporting
I'm-
documents would indicate that that's.
Right, and we tried, because I'll be honest, this was a very long motion in the beginning. We tried to condense it down, and in doing so, that's where we came up with the
brevity.
the approval of just the budget amendment. But I do understand where you're coming from.
I just want to make sure that we're covered, because this is going to have to go to the commissioners before we would meet again, so That's all I'm looking at is,
I feel comfortable that we'll be able to
Right, because I mean,
explain
the
it to
the
them.
234, like, if I'm looking at the first one, the 234,
Right.
141 budget amendment was outlined and explained within the presentation.
Yes.
right.
Yes.
So we know where that $234,000 and
Right.
change is
Yes.
coming from. So that's why I asked the questions, as long as everyone understood that we were taking that 234 from other existing projects
Right.
and returning it, but at the same time, rather than having them dump it back into their fin reserve, it's gonna come, we're asking for it at the same time to come back to us. Because they haven't put it in as part of their budget anywhere because they didn't know it was coming back to them yet.
Right.
So it's still available funds.
Right, so the funding, the 545,372 will revert to the Fin reserve. And the reason that it does is because some of it is PAYGO funding, some of it is unsold bonds, some of it is sold bonds. So it will go into the Fin reserve, and what they will give back is they will give it back in a way that is financially right for them, whether it be PAYGO funding or unsold bonds. They will take from that pot of money that we put it in, and they'll find the right pot and give it back. But we are depositing the money and withdrawing the same amount. It's just how it comes back in terms of bonds versus PAYGO.
Got it. I understand the need to revert it to them
You're
so that we
looking for
can
it in
get
the
it
motion,
back. I
Right,
just
but
want
what
to
I'm
make sure we're
saying is,
covered.
the reason I think we're covered is because of this part of the presentation right there, where my 234, my 311 equals the 545 that we're gonna return.
Correct.
And there's very specifically what the budget savings are,
Yeah.
on those three projects.
And so what I would say is when we make the motion, that we include the words "as presented"
That's fine.
Yes.
Yes.
in each of those,
That's
because then if
Yes.
I think if we include "as presented,"
Then it's very clearly stated what the
okay?
amounts were.
Right.
This is
But whoever's making my motion understands that number one and number two are two separate motions.
Correct.
Okay.
as presented.
All
Yes,
right,
they are two motions.
right.
Yeah.
When we got the bids back a couple of weeks ago, and we were gonna push one of these incredibly important jobs out and then incur the cost of forestalling something that needs to be done now, I have never seen the level of effort and creativity and the bringing together and reaching out to a whole host of people to come together with something so elegant in its gradedness. Kelly Hall would be proud, as far as gathering together all those things to get this done and to move forward to incredibly important projects that we have been talking about for several years now, and we really just need to get going.
So when we had this discussion in the office, I can tell you, my heart sank.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about reverting if we were to have reverted one of these because we couldn't afford it, the 545,000 that we're gonna ask for two becomes $1,063,000 for one. And what that does to us, it moves everything to the right, and then the 4.6 million from the state becomes an issue, because now I'm asking for even more from the state, and we were going to have to defer projects 2 and 3 years.
Right.
That are much needed, that Mr. Whidden needs done so that he can maintain them. So it really did take a village to bring this together, and I am very appreciative of those at the state and the county that have worked with us to help us find this resolution.
Very similar to the budget we're going to be approving after this,
Okay.
as far as figuring out a way to get it done.
All right, may I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the contract award for the Hollywood Elementary School roof and HVAC systemic renovation to Tuckman Barbie Construction Company Incorporated in the amount of $6,616,000 for the base bid and alternates 10 and 11, contingent upon additional FY 2020 funding of $326,859 from the Interagency Commission on School Construction and approval of a $234,141 budget amendment by the Commissioners of St. Mary's County as presented by staff.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Now for the second one.
I move that the Board of Education approve the contract award for the Park Hall Elementary School roof and HVAC systemic renovation to Scheibel Construction in the amount of $6,976,000 for the base bid and alternate 8, contingent upon additional FY 2020 funding of $359,320 from the Interagency Commission on School Construction and approval of a $311,231 budget amendment by the Commissioners of St. Mary's County as presented by staff.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much to all
Excellent
of you
work.
figuring out a way. Thank you.
Someone text
That's
Dr.
something.
Walker.
I am. And thank you for being indulgent with me being a stickler about.
No, you were
Get the
wholeheartedly
motion
right.
right, because we don't want to come back.
We don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. Smith and Ms. McCourt.
I'm just sitting there.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mrs. McCourt. You look very well rested.
It has been quite a taxing budget session. And we've gone through quite a few iterations, quite a few, and I've lost track of how many iterations, but I can guarantee you that there is one person in this room, Karen Breslauer, that would know exactly how many iterations we've gone through, because she has worked tirelessly ensuring the accuracy and transparency of every one of those documents that you have before you. So many thanks to her. So I'd like to start where we started, many months ago, it seems now. The budget that you presented to the county commissioners totaled $224.5 million and was submitted with a request and local funding of $110.6 million, representing a $6.7 million increase from the county commissioners. Where we ended, where the county commissioners approved their budget yesterday, and included $106.2 million, or a $2.3 million increase in local funding, which meant that we had a gap. To close that gap, we are relying on Kerwin Commission funding, as well as less than a 1% of our current budget savings that we are anticipating this year, totaling $1.9 million in fund balance to support textbooks, materials, and instruction and technology. So the total budget presenting to you for your adoption this evening is $222 million, or a $7.8 million increase, representing 3.65% increase over the prior year. What we're showing before you now are the categories of which those funds are shown. The primary increases are in healthcare. They are in utility, fuel contract, and bus contract or increase, as well as the negotiated agreement. The negotiated agreement monies are coming both from the increase from the local county commissioners, as well as a heavy reliance on the Kerwin monies. So with that, I present it to you for your approval. And welcome any questions.
No questions, just a thanks to all the people who have been involved and who've done the work to make sure that we're able to move forward with this. I think, I know we have done what we set out to do, which was to take care of staff first. And I think that's a well-placed effort, and thanks to the commissioners who were willing to sit down and have a conversation, and to listen, and to come forward with this. So to Commissioner President Guy, to Commissioner Morgan, and to Commissioner Colvin, profound thanks. And to Mrs. McCourt and to everyone in finance. I know that you are used to having to make changes and to come back with different iterations, but in the number of years that I've been on this board, never has the budget process gone in quite the way that this one has. But your diligence and your persistence have come through. So thank you.
I have a motion.
I move that the Board of Education adopt the fiscal year of 2020 budget as presented and forward to the Commissioners of St. Mary's County for their approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. McCord. Thank you, Ms. Breslauer, very much, very much, very much.
All right, let's see. STEM Academy for Great Mills. Ms. Mandis, Ms. Offenbacher.
Yay, so let's talk
Fun
about...
stuff.
Let's talk about where our money goes.
Well, let's talk about where our money goes. Let's talk about what we are investing in St. Mary's County. Let's take a look at the incredible product that this high-performing school system delivers.
That's what we're going to do.
And,
don't know what
and who sits where?
Okay.
Have an order.
Good evening, Board of Ed.
That's fantastic.
Good evening, Dr. Smith.
Good evening.
And Lake, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for your service. I wasn't here earlier, but thank you very much for being an awesome member of Global and International Studies and a great Board of Education member.
Thank you.
We're here this evening to highlight some of the STEM Academy students who are getting ready to graduate here, as well as to highlight, I've been in front of you several times as we've been talking about the adoption of the AP Capstone programming and some of the changes that we put forth to all of our academies, but also to STEM in terms of programming options for students. So this will really allow us to see how those changes have manifested in the end product here, which was nothing short of remarkable. In terms of the key elements of STEM, we really focus on the academic rigor and the relevance, primarily through internships, with which these three young people will talk about this evening. We also encourage a myriad of competitions. As you saw with the student award ceremony last week, there were quite a few awesome recognitions of the amazing things those kids have done. Those specialized internships, the intensive research, when I say that these young people did dissertation level or close to dissertation level research, it truly is. And continuing to build the community relationships, not just through internships, but through guest speakers and opportunities for our students and our staff as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Offenbacher to highlight a little bit about the community support and internships that we foster within STEM.
So I would say, as a teacher in the STEM Academy for quite some time now, that our community partnerships are really a hallmark of the program. We have just a tremendous number of partners in the community, like the ones that you see on the list here. These were the different organizations that hosted our students last summer. There are STEM professionals that work there that basically volunteered part of their time to mentor a young person, to show them what the real world looks like in terms of working in STEM fields. There's lots of different STEM fields, so you can see on this particular list some of our frequent partners. The St. Mary's River Watershed Association has been a partner with us for many, many years, have hosted one or more STEM students in the summer. The Calvert Marine Museum is also a very popular destination for our students because they love to interact with the community and to share what they know about science. The Friends of the Patuxent River Naval Air Station and the MedStar St. Mary's Hospital have been with us since the inception of the STEM Academy, and they have always hosted interns in the summer. And then also the St. Mary's County Health Department has just been a wonderful and emerging partner for us, and they are building a health academy and they bring students in the summer. And we're enormously grateful to our partnerships, our partner organizations. This coming summer will mark the 10th year that STEM students go out into the community to work with STEM professionals. So we have 3 students from the class of 2019, Zoe Cardy and Laura Picard and Adam Lindholm, and they're going to tell you a little bit about their work. But first, I wanted to share with you our very exciting developments in the AP Capstone program. So as you know, last year was the very first year that we started students taking AP Capstone courses. When these students were juniors in the STEM Academy, they took AP Seminar. An AP Seminar is an interdisciplinary, student-centered inquiry-based approach to learning. The program itself is just terrific because it does just what we want to see in STEM. It integrates all different types of disciplines, and I'm a language arts teacher, so we integrate in reading and writing and public speaking. The program involves performance assessments, so like many AP classes, the students take exams at the end of the school year, but in particular, AP seminar, students complete performance assessments throughout the school year. So they're doing real-world research on problems that they identify, and these are big, complex, real-world problems like climate change, gun control. I mean, the really thorny issues, and students are grappling with those issues. They're doing really terrific research. So all of our STEM juniors took AP Seminar last year, and then this year as seniors, many of them took AP Research, which is the second course in the College Board's AP Capstone program. And students who complete successfully both exams, AP Seminar and AP Research, plus an additional 4 AP courses, could be in any content area, pass those exams with a 3 or better, they will earn an AP Capstone diploma from the College Board. So this is not a requirement of the STEM Academy to complete the AP Capstone diploma program. It's just an option, it's a pathway. So now I'd like to turn this over to Zoe. Zoe's going to talk a little bit about her pathway through STEM.
So I took, through the STEM Academy, I was able to complete an internship at MedStar St. Mary's Hospital over the summer. I was able to shadow in the following departments. I had a focus on the Diagnostic Imaging and Radiology department, as I wanted to focus on head injuries and visual impairments that came from those head injuries. I was able to see a lot of different scans that I wasn't focused on, but it was still really cool to be able to see the different areas within the hospital that all go into one area. And then through my time there, I was also able to shadow in different rehabilitation centers, so in the physical therapy and occupational therapy areas, as well as the Grace Andorni Pulmonary and Cardiac Rehabilitation Center. So I was able to see how, not only how injuries can be diagnosed through the scans that they take in the Diagnostic Imaging and Radiology department, but also the steps that they take, not necessarily with head injuries, but in any kind of injuries, how the hospital goes through that rehabilitation process with all their patients. I was also able to practice a lot of professionalism, which I found really helpful. So my case study was focused on, as I said before, visual impairments coming from traumatic brain injuries. And through a lot of individual research, I realized that this area was really just unexplored. So, which is why I think it's very important that this area continues to be looked into and researched, and hopefully find any kind of resolution for it. But it was just a really great opportunity to just do research and be able to speak with medical professionals, not only about what they do in their careers, but also how they feel about the careers, how they got there, where they're going next, and all the different fields that you can have within the healthcare department. So, fair warning, there are some graphic images in the next slide.
Right.
Yeah. So after my internship over the summer, I decided that I wanted to be the guinea pig for being the first STEM student to also take part in the tech center. So I took the elective course in anatomy and physiology this year, which was periods 1 and 2, which is why I was unable to take the STEM research class, or AP research class, not STEM research. But I was still able to complete the STEM Academy as well as the selective course, which I found very useful. As you can see, I was able to dissect sheep brains, and I think that was a deer heart. So I just found it really helpful to be able to be immersed in that area of healthcare, while also being able to partake in the STEM Academy and having those resources for research and everything else that the STEM Academy provides. So now I will introduce Laura, who is going to talk about how her involvement in the healthcare field took a different pathway.
So I'm Laura Picard, and I also did my internships in the field of healthcare. I did them at the St. Mary's County Health Department and the Tidewater Veterinary Hospital. in order to see two sides of health, public health and veterinary medicine. So while at the health department, I was able to see public health in action. Public health is defined as the health of the population as a whole, and the health department takes actions to create awareness or regulate situations that could influence the health of St. Mary's County. I worked in the infectious disease department in order to learn more about how diseases travel and how the health department stops them or helps those infected with them. While here, I did many things, one of which was researching Zika, a disease that travels through mosquitoes and can cause birth defects in pregnant women. I included general information like this, along with more detailed procedures in the informational booklets I created for nurses to use in case of an outbreak. Another thing I was able to do was attend Public Health 101 meetings with my fellow interns and Public Health Officer Dr. Brewster in order to learn more about public health. We researched and gave presentations about real-life issues that could become public health issues in the future. And the last thing I was able to do was also attend health department events and help out at them. One of them was Kindergarten Here We Come, which is shown here on the right. And it was an event where I helped the nurses educate parents on vaccines and diseases. Through these opportunities at the health department, I was able to learn a lot more about public health. Meanwhile, at the Tidewater Veterinary Hospital, I was able to follow what a vet does on a daily basis. For your awareness, the next picture is a little bit graphic because I was able to observe some surgeries, including common ones such as spays and neuters, but also more uncommon ones such as splenectomies, a horse dental extraction, and enucleation, which is the removal of the eye, and is shown there on the left. I was also able to see several daily checkups, which would include anything from giving medications to drawing blood to taking ultrasounds and x-rays. An x-ray of a dog who swallowed a rock is shown on the right. I was, the last type of patient I was able to see were patients with persisting conditions that didn't require surgery but required care and monitoring. These included a dog with necrosis who was losing skin on its leg and a dog with a heat stroke. Meanwhile, through all of these experiences at Tidewater, I was able to see how veterinary medicine plays a role. So through both of these internships, I learned more about public health and veterinary medicine, which are both related as being both part of the health field, but they also have several specific topics they both interact with. One of them is rabies, and when I elected to do the AP research course for my senior year, I chose to focus on rabies. More specifically, I focused on how social behaviors can influence rabies transmission in bats. In order to study, so in my project, I aimed to find an effective way to reduce rabies as a whole, which I did by finding the social behaviors. So in order to study this, I found the different social behaviors and the frequencies of them in bats. These social behaviors included huddling, social grooming, self-grooming, kissing, and nose rubbing. And in order to find them, I used footage from the Bat World Bat Sanctuary, which is shown up there, an example of which is shown there. And I randomly selected a bat to watch for 4 minutes, and then I recorded the behavior it was expressing every 10 seconds. I repeated this for 20 different bats, and then I found the average frequency of each behavior. After I did this, I found that huddling was the most common behavior in bats, but this doesn't mean that it accounts for most of rabies transmission. I actually had to take into account more factors beyond just frequency. Because the rabies virus mainly travels through saliva, one important one that heavily influenced rabies transmission was how many bats the virus had to pass in between before it reached a new host. So in order to find this, I calculated the likelihood of 8 different sequences of huddling, social grooming, self-grooming, kissing, and nose rubbing using the frequencies I found before. After I did this, I found that social grooming was the most, the sequences of behaviors involving social grooming were the most common. So with that, I concluded that social grooming must account for most of rabies transmission and that vaccination efforts should focus on it in order to reduce rabies as a whole. So while my project focused on bats and rabies, which are current and present issues right now, Adam Lindholm's project focused on animals of the past in order to study in his AP research project and internship.
So as long as I can remember, I've been interested in the field of paleontology, and the STEM Academy has given me a lot of opportunities within that field to pursue it in a way that I wouldn't be able to otherwise. I think, sort of everybody kind of remembers, those early days in preschool or elementary school when you have like that one couple of days on dinosaurs. It's not really scientific, and so I'd kind of always wanted the chance to pursue it more aggressively, and something that actually let me do that was the heavy use of the science fair within the STEM Academy, which I've which has been a really great opportunity for me to be able to look into a lot of these sort of biomechanical enigmas concerning prehistoric animal behaviors, basically being able to derive how the animals may have acted based on some sort of practical modeling. This has led me looking at everything from how T-Rex may have used its arms to the aerodynamic abilities of the pterosaurs or the pterodactyls, or the head strike potential for head strike behaviors in the pachycephalosaurs or the dome-headed dinosaurs. Therefore, knowing exactly the field that I've wanted to go into forever made it a very, very easy choice when it came time to choose my internship at the Paleontology Department at the Calvert Marine Museum. Well, I'd had a lot of a chance to look at the more theoretical aspects of paleontology and conduct sort of experimentation. This internship gave me much more of a crash course in the practical aspects of the field, particularly field work, preparatory work, and taxonomy. So the first of these steps was field work. I apologize for the graphic content here of an unclean fossil. Basically, the museum it turns like it's a ton of these calls every summer from basically residents all around Calvert County who see things in the cliffs and wants the museum to come out and quarry them. And it was a great lesson in the skills required to help just to carefully sort of excavate around and remove specimens from the block. Actually, the really sort of interesting thing is you never really know what you're getting or what you're dealing with at first. Actually, the specimen shown here, we originally thought was a dolphin skull, but upon getting to the second step, preparation, it turned out to be the skull of a juvenile whale, which is far more significant. Actually, this experience of cleaning this particular skull was sort of the most impactful thing of the internship on me, because I followed this specimen from out of the cliff into the collections. I was the person who was the chief preparator on it and then cleaning it, and it really sort of developed an emotional connection with it. I named it Terrence, which I wrote on the card, and it now resides in the collection. And I enjoyed this process enough, and the museum enjoyed me enough that I was able to be hired back on as an employee in their prep lab currently, which I'm very much enjoying. The third part of the internship was rather different. I'd like to introduce you to World War II General Merwin H. Silverthorne, a man with one of the most illustrious military careers I've ever heard of. He fought at both World Wars, everywhere from Verdun to Okinawa, in the Haitian Campaign and the Pancho Villa Expedition. He's from Minnesota, which is a win for me. And he also absolutely adored collecting snails. And in 1985, when he died, his collection fell into sort of disrepair, and it was given to the Calvert Marine Museum a couple years ago. It is now our job to go through, look at all of Silverthorne's labels, and see how correct they were. It's not very correct. Basically, you get sort of these shells, and we had books, and obviously the internet databases and everything, and you have to go and you have to match that shell to some living example to try to figure out what it is. There were some that absolutely stumped me. I contacted friends for advice on what they might be. I read through one particular book on land snails cover to cover like 3 or 4 times. I spent hours on internet databases on the geology and history of the Caribbean, but was never able to figure them out. But it presented a very interesting challenge, because often in this science, it's very open-ended, and we don't know much about it, and you have to be willing to sort of solve these problems. I'd also like to point out with that image there on the left is my particular favorite specimen he had. These are 2 edible snails that he collected on an airplane as dinner.
In 1958.
Yep. Lastly, as part of my internship, I finally got the chance to conduct one particular study I'd always wanted to do. I'd been able to use the school's 3D printers with the Mr. Skinner's engineering program. It was an excellent resource for the past couple of years, but I was never able to print something as complex as the skull of an extinct species. And the Calvert Marine Museum, meanwhile, has this excellent printer that they can use to print in 1-to-1 scale casts of real fossils. I use this to print in a much smaller scale the skulls of 2 species of horned dinosaurs, ceratopsian, in order to observe how the likelihood for combat across 2 different combat styles. Well, some papers do exist examining the practical biomechanics of this. None really delve into the which style is more likely, whether they rammed into each other, maybe like modern muskox or bison, or torqued against each other like modern deer. I cast the skulls in car body filler, which it turns out is a very good bone analog, and ran them across the styles using a lot of the physics I've been doing this year in Physics C, and eventually realized that this testing resulted in an extremely high level of fatalities. 1 in 4 on the low end and 3 in 5 on the high end proportion of fatality, which is completely unsustainable in a species. Basically, there was a severe horn breakage which occurred, and these horns were made of bone, not keratin like modern animals, so if that sort of thing happened, it would be absolutely a devastating injury. While this does not account for the ability of the animal to retreat from combat, as observed in many modern species of artiodactyls, the closest sort of analog we have to these dinosaurs, basically it merits further examination that potentially these structures may have served a purpose akin to display, either for attracting a mate or for intimidating another member of the species. It's not really clear, but combat may be ruled out as a result.
How do you follow that?
No one wants to. Yes. No one wants to follow Adam ever in public speaking, but I'm not afraid. I taught him for 2 years. So actually, congratulations to these 3 students, to all of our STEM seniors, our STEM class of 2019. It was an amazing group. I also really have great thanks for their mentors, as I've said, and their families who are behind us. And the families were with us at the STEM Showcase last month to celebrate their success. And we also give tremendous thanks to you, the Board of Education. Thank you for your continuing support for the STEM Academy. We really very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Questions or comments?
Well, as I met Adam when he presented last time, I thought, well, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an archaeologist, but no. I mean, I played with the plastic and realized, but I didn't actually do the torque and the 3 out of 5. That would be terrible. That would be. So should we consider? We should continue with STEM. We should stick with this, right? So this program is actually of great benefit to all involved, and so when somebody talks about a budget and starts saying, hey, just make it work, just cut things, cut programs. Should we cut STEM? Should we cut programs? Should we diminish in any way what we do for children? Would you like to have any of that? Would you like us to close the tech center? Because, that's just extra stuff, right? So, you don't really need that, right? Should we?
Those planes cost money.
No, you are an absolute brilliant and beautiful example of what makes this school system so great, and your accomplishments to date are exceptionally impressive. You dwarf the majority of people graduating from college this week with a 4-year degree that walk out and go, well, I'm a communications major. That's not to say there's anything wrong with. But before others come, I'm an English major, right? Beautiful job working, though, the transition between all of you. That was lovely. And that's something that comes from working with, English teachers who recognize you don't just hop from place to place. You transition to the next speaker through a bridge of sorts. And I noticed that was really quite lovely.
I did not put Adam up to the Richard III, but if you want to stay,
that
late,
was.
he'll do
I have seen it. It is exceptionally moving, and I've seen you on stage as well.
These are wonderful students.
Quite
I'm going to say, you all had amazing opportunities that so many people don't have, and you've taken that and you've grown within yourselves to, amazing heights. I did have the opportunity to go, and I did get to speak to each one of you, and what was really neat about this class that I noticed, there were so many different types of projects and ideas and internships that I've never seen before. The other thing that I noticed is that this class was very close-knit.
Absolutely.
That's the impression that I got when I went through and talked to each one of you. Some of the projects, I had no clue to what they were saying, but I stood there and was like, especially the one student that was something about some atom that he was freezing in space or something.
Gosh.
And that was just well beyond me.
Yeah.
But
so he was at St. Mary's College cooling rubidium atoms.
Yeah, that was it. But I mean, just so many neat and different types of projects, and just amazing internships that you were able to have. And thank you for sharing what you've learned.
I would just echo what everybody's been saying about English and what you said earlier.
I did not.
When I was in high school, a chemical engineer from DuPont, which was near our school, came in to talk to us, and I was interested in science, and I asked myself, why am I taking English? You know, I know how to speak English. And I remember the chemical engineer saying, I don't care what you know, if you can't convey your knowledge to other people, you're not going to be very effective. So you have to be very skilled in how you present it orally and your writing skills. And so in deference to Dr. Smith, English is very important. And when you're in college, it's great to have all these scientific, engineering, technical, mathematic abilities, but if you can't convey it,
And you all can.
as you all can,
Believe what?
I just wanted to tell you that's what I learned. And when I got out of college, I had some projects, and I really wasn't too concerned about how to write it. I just wanted to get the work done, and I had to struggle from that. So my advice to you is doing this wonderful work, hone your English skills as well. Thank you very much.
Excellent projects. They were all incredibly interesting. I'm happy to see that the deer heart that I provided to Tech Center was good use.
It takes a village.
It does. It went in a cooler,
Yes.
everything, and it had its tag on it, so glad you enjoyed dissecting them. So.
That is a county moment.
That is a big and I can even shoot the deer,
Yeah.
so there you go.
Look at this, she goes from providing crab hammers to
Yeah,
deer
yeah,
hearts.
yeah.
What won't you do?
Talk to my children, so, but
Adam,
yes.
I want to see you later I want to talk about the Upper Cretaceous period. So I need some advice on that.
I could say something really sneaky
Yeah,
right
Mary,
now.
follow that.
I want to thank you for your enthusiasm and your interest in your STEM capstone project and how you eloquently presented your findings and your research to us. And I want to thank our partners who provided internships for our students. So I want to thank them very much. And thank you, students, for what you're doing. I think you're going to make a positive difference in the world, and I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Zoe, Laura, and Adam, very impressive. What I would like to know from each of you is what's next. Where are you going to go to school, or what are you going to do after high school? And if you're going on to college, what are you planning to study and ultimately to do?
So you haven't.
I've been accepted to the University of Oxford, where I'm going to be studying earth sciences, eventually concentrating on paleontology, and long-term I'm going for my PhD.
Somehow I knew that within the next 10 years, should I be lucky enough that our paths cross, that I will be addressing you as Dr. Lindhold, without a doubt.
So I'm going to the University of Maryland College Park in order to study animal sciences. I'm probably eventually going to become a veterinarian, but I'm definitely planning on going to graduate school at least.
Very good.
So I'm going to a little bit of a colder climate. I'll be going to the University of New Hampshire in the fall to major in health sciences. They actually started a new major, perfect timing, for pre-physician assisting. So I hope to be eventually an orthopedic PA. So we'll see how that goes.
Fantastic. And Dr. Smith, I would say that we're missing a huge opportunity if we don't find a way to bring either these students or students like them before the commissioners, so that they have an opportunity to be wowed in the same way that I think we have all been. It's one thing to hear from us about what we see in the schools. It's another thing entirely to have that in front of them This is extraordinary. And I'm not surprised because this is not the first time we've had STEM students before us and walked away with our jaws on the ground. So just a thought.
So we'll put the request in to get on their agenda in September with the hopes they can fit us in by the end of the year.
Yeah, that works. I truly think that it's hard for people to understand when we talk about the STEM education that the system is able to provide for students what the reality of the outcome is. I think they all think that, they're all sitting around with some calculators and, doing some sciencey stuff.
And there was a time when you were. There's some sciencey stuff going on.
I don't think, because the number of science fairs I've been to, I don't recall necessarily the commissioners being able to be there and view the extraordinary projects that are displayed there on the students' work on those projects. I really think, I put that out as a suggestion. If we can find a way to do it, I really think that's important.
I'm just really, really, really thankful to all three of you, and you as well, both English teachers coming up and doing all this stuff. That is funny, the two English teachers are like just cooking along with all these brilliant scientific minds. I'm just really happy and thankful that you came out on Wednesday when you don't necessarily have to be here to spend time once again to talk about your wonderful work. It speaks volumes to who you are as people, to how much you understand the wonderful work that you've done, but you also understand that you're in a larger community, and really it's your shoulders upon which others will then stand, and it gets better and better every single year. And you're just wonderful, wonderful, entertaining people, and I can't wait until next week to shake your hands as you go across the stage. Congratulations, congratulations, and to the parents in the audience. Oh my gosh, what kids have you, wow, wow. As a parent of many, wow, just thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fingers on the rock.
Mrs. Long, Mrs. Schrader, with our Stop Grant Award.
Zoe and Nora and Adam, that was really.
Right.
That just was bad timing right there.
Bad timing.
Oh, boy.
No, but doesn't that fill your heart to know that there's
brilliance out
brilliance coming to solve all the stuff that we've broken and made not right?
I am telling you.
Thank goodness.
That is amazing, amazing.
Because we are going to need really gifted people to get us out of this hole. We are digging.
Wow. All right, good evening. Joining me is Ms. Robin Schrader, our mental health coordinator, and also I want to recognize Ms. Tammy Lowy. She is the behavioral health program director for the health department. And tonight we're going to share with you information on the STOP grant. The STOP grant, the Substance Abuse Treatment Outcome Partnership Grant, it is, those funds come from the Maryland Department of Health, from the Behavioral Health Authority division of that, and they're awarded to local agencies who partner together to work on mental and behavioral health needs. And that's exactly what we did with the lead of Ms. Schrader and the work in collaborating with Tammy Lowy at the Health Department and Student Services. We wrote a proposal to the Behavioral Health Authority for, we'll go in further about that, but for mental health services in our schools. The total grant amount is $790,000, $790,414.
Annually.
That was what our proposal was, and that was what was awarded actually to us. So the grant itself is to provide mental health supports in all of our secondary schools, middle and high schools, and that looks like a mental health behavioral specialist or social worker in each one of those schools. And Ms. Schrader will give you a little bit more information about that.
So the activities that we're going to focus on, we are going to have students accepted that will participate in the program a minimum of 8 weeks. to start. Now that can be extended should a student need that, but the focus will be on prevention and intervention programming that focuses on mental health, resiliency, and coping skills for students affected by social emotional problems. Each of the 8 providers that we hire are going to be trained in something called trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy, CBT for short. Trauma-focused CBT is the #1 evidence-based therapeutic approach when working with adolescents with mental health in many different capacities, from anxiety, depression, trauma. So as part of the grant, we put in for that funding as well to be able to train them at a very high level of training. So that will support our adolescents with mental health and behavioral concerns in our schools. The goals of the program are obviously to provide the mental health supports and services in our secondary schools, but those folks will also be doing consultation with teachers, pushing into the classrooms. They'll be working with staff, working with parents to provide that well-rounded approach to mental health support for the students that we have that need that. It's definitely a gap in our services that we feel like this will be very beneficial to support our students. We will be communicating frequently with our community partners and educating them on the referral process. So we hope to receive referrals from multiple community partners, parents, staff, students, and even students can self-refer. The flexibility of the program will allow them to not just see them on a weekly basis as planned, but should there be a crisis or something comes up for that student that they need that level of support that day, the person will be in the building full-time every single day, one person. So they will build that rapport and that relationship, which will ultimately increase their positive outcomes. So in addition to that, we hope to improve their social emotional functioning by having this access full-time. We hope to ultimately reduce the number of emergency room visits for crisis intervention and substance abuse. We hope to reduce the number of disciplinary referrals, and we also hope to reduce the number of school absences that these students tend to occur.
Well, I'll start off. I'd like to say thank you so much for being here, and that we need so many more of you, because your job is so important. And I think mental health is something that often, until recently, is not very talked about, and I don't think that people understand how far and how deeply mental health runs through people, and that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, that it's everybody. So it's so important to have you guys, and thank you so much for being a part of our team, because we need you a lot.
I echo, like said, this is a very important piece for, our society in general. One of the things I wanted to ask you, you said something about 8 weeks. Is that kind of like at 8 weeks and the student then is able or does not see the mental health or the social worker or at that time? Is that kind of what
It's flexible. So the guide is about an 8-week program. What we know is that 8 to 12 weeks is the typical amount of time with a CBT approach to kind of alter some of those thought patterns and change behaviors. But there will be pre and post assessments done with students. So should a student continue to need that level of intervention, then they can continue on in seeing that person. Should they need it on an occasional basis, then they would need to be able to do that. This program will allow that to happen as well. Should they need a higher level of intensive support, that person would work with school personnel as well to refer them out to our community-based supports. And that's one of the actual biggest benefits of the program, is by having the supports and services inside of our schools, we're actually reducing the amount of inappropriate referrals that flood our community. And we know that we just don't have enough mental health providers in our community. So we want to make sure that those referrals are appropriate. And by having some things addressed within the school setting, and we're able to get those students back on track and get them feeling healthy and well, then that's a space that opens up in our community for those that have more intensive needs.
So do you have the statistics of, this is how many students we're seeing in the emergency room for this. You know, you have all those statistics for,
We
to
do.
base what you're going to say, okay, we need to see those numbers reduced or the numbers of referrals reduced. So you're starting out with a set number.
We do, to a degree. The health department and the county level do keep track of the number of hospital admissions for people, adults and adolescents. In addition to that, I do track the number of risk assessments and referrals to hospitals that each of our staff at each school does. All of those go through me, and I put them into a database, and I'm tracking those numbers. And I can tell you that we are almost double what we were this time last year, as far as the number of risk assessments for suicidal ideation than we were a year ago. So yes.
Okay, well, that's good, because I was an ER and psych nurse for, I won't tell you how many years. So, and you see a lot of repeat people coming, you know, onto the unit. And I'm hoping that the hospital stays have changed, but I'm really not sure, you know, because it's such a short stay that, you know, the people really don't get really the help that they need. It's like this short term, you know, get them on, okay, yeah, the certain pill works, and then out the door they go, but you know darn well that they can't afford the medication, etc. So I'm hoping that we have, you know, like you were talking about 8 weeks, 8 to, you know, 8, 10, 12 weeks, and that is usually, you know, the time frame, and then for some things up to a year. The follow-up for a year, and that's why I was asking, you know, is this 8 weeks, is that more like a cutoff, or?
It's a guide. It's a general guide for services. But just to comment back on your discussion about kids coming out of the ER and things like that, part of this program too will be the students who are actually admitted to hospitals for that crisis stabilization. This person would be seeing those kids when they come out of the hospital as a transition, because what we know is that if they don't already have providers set up prior to admission, it takes time. And that is very precious time when you're coming off of a crisis. Right. And if we can support those students as they're transitioning to outpatient treatment, their outcomes are going to be significantly better.
And just to add on to that, Robin has already met several times with discharge planners at Calvert Memorial for that exactly, and just, you know, coordinating that discharge plan from the hospital with the families and then back into our schools. So there's that bridge as well, and then leading right into the counselors.
Now, have you worked with St. Mary's? Because I know they take 16 and up.
I have reached out to St. Mary's, and I'm still in the process of working with them to coordinate a more specific plan. They don't serve as many of our students. No. So I started with Calvert since they see the majority of our students. But yes, they are on my radar, and I have reached out.
Okay, and do you do like after, like, I know if there's a crisis, but do you do like an after school counseling? Like, I know you're going to be in the schools during the day, but what about like after school, like for the parents and the student, or you're just focusing on the student themselves?
So we do have our evening counseling still, and we will continue that at Great Mills High School, that one night a week.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that.
Can I assume that this is all voluntary? In other words, would perhaps a school nurse recommend a patient, or is this all voluntary?
Sure. Yes. Yep.
Yes.
They
I
absolutely
just
can recommend any school
wanted to
staff.
assume that. So no authority or something can ever come in
No.
and place a student in your care.
No, and he's talking he's talking the students.
The student.
The student going to the mental health counselor is voluntary.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I just kind of assumed it. I just wanted to get that out. Social media. I've been reading a lot on the news about the problems of social media. Kids getting bullied with social media. Do you see that at all in your therapy at all?
I'm currently not doing therapy here for St. Mary's County Schools, but the past 17 years I had been practicing in a school system, and yes, I do see an increase on the impact of social media on students, on people in general. I think it allows an ease to sit behind a screen and say things you probably wouldn't normally say. And I do think it impacts our students.
That's all I have, thank you.
I'm sure social media is the number one reason for the increase in the need for these supports, because the kids sit and they don't know how to cope with it, and then if one person says it, then their mind thinks, well, everyone else must think this, or as it gets passed around, on the snaps and everything else. So I'm sure. I mean, hats off to applying for and getting the full amount of the grant. I think it's obviously very needed, especially in the middle school, as there's kids struggle with, everything that is going on in their lives and adolescence at that point. So thank you very much. And thanks to the health department too.
Oh my gosh.
Once again, it's just it is another partnership that we have, and it is just another instance when people say that we're not just educating, we're really, at this point in history, we are taking care of the complete student, and more often than not, their families at the same time.
Well, when you consider we're talking about transition plans for at-risk students who go in, crisis services and how they, nobody would have ever thought for 1 second that that's something that a school staff person would do, and do it as thoughtfully as this is now going to be coordinated.
Right. So, I don't have anything more.
Okay. Our mental health is just as important as our physical health, and it's been an area that has been overlooked. People are reluctant to come forward because of the stigma attached to mental health. A person told me she would rather have cancer than have a mental health issue because of the stigma attached with it, and the consequence of people knowing that this person, if they would have a mental health issue. This is Mental Health Awareness Month in May, and it's appropriate that you come at this time. You say you have 8 social workers, and they will be at all high and middle school. Will one be at the Fairlead Academy?
Yes.
I'm a firm believer that we need a social worker, we need a psychologist in every school. It's to that point, elementary as well. How long does this grant last? Is it for 1 year or what?
It is 1 year, but go ahead. Yeah.
So for the staff grant through behavioral health that we apply for yearly, it is a year-to-year. We were very fortunate to get the funding. We also got additional funding for other services through this grant. So we do anticipate for the continuation of funding. And if it continues to be successful and we can show the measures, the ultimate goal would be to increase into all of the elementary schools, whether it's being, starting small of sharing through the elementaries to eventually being able to put somebody in each one. That at least is my goal.
Yes.
For the health department, for the local behavioral health to help support the school system with the behavioral health concerns in the schools.
Yes, because these issues come up early on in elementary school, and if we can catch these behaviors early on, then we will be able to start earlier instead of having a delayed response until the student is in middle school or high school to get the help that they need. So it's just like when we didn't have a nurse in every school, and we had to fight to get a nurse in every school. Now we have a full-time nurse in every school, and in the high schools sometimes more. So I see the day where we will need this service in the elementary schools as well. So thank the health department, who is an excellent partner in all that you do and will do to keep our students healthy in all areas. The school has more responsibility than it has ever had before with our students' health issues, mental, psychological issues, social issues, and I thank you all for what you do. So I am looking forward to the grant continuing. I know you're going to have the data to support that you get it for the next year, and to include the elementary schools as well. Thank you.
How will you identify the students?
So Yeah, so they can be referred really by anyone in the school. The counselors already, have students that they've been working with in the schools that can be referred immediately. Again, from parents can, when they hear about the program, they can make referrals as well.
And
So-
also that communication with our community
Right.
partners. So like through the Department of Social Services and other agencies that we are connecting with, the plan is that we want to go out and educate them that we have this program, that if you have students that you think would fit this, that here's the referral, here's how we do this, so that we're educating everyone on the program. We sort of already know who a lot of the kids are that need it because we're seeing that gap and trying to get them support outside of school. So I don't think the problem is going to be finding students to get the program.
Right.
Yeah.
And will they meet one-on-one?
Yes.
With, okay, so it won't be a group setting, it will be,
They can do some groups, but the purpose of the program is to meet one-on-one individually weekly.
okay. And how many students do you anticipate that will be able to be served through this 8-week program?
So when you're looking at caseloads for a therapeutic provider, depending on how long a student is in the program is going to change the numbers at an individual school. So a full-time caseload of one-on-one individual therapeutic support, you really kind of want to stay around that 15 kids a week kind of thing. So depending on if those kids stay for 8 weeks or if they stay for 8 months, that's going to change your numbers.
Mhm.
But in the projections, we looked at an average of 30 students per clinician per school as an average. I anticipate those numbers will be higher, but I didn't want to overestimate those in the proposal.
If we have students at the elementary level who have significant issues, will any of these professionals be able to assist, or I recognize they're not likely to be able to meet with the students, but in terms of being able to identify appropriate interventions or supports, will there be any ability to do that?
So right now, we do have some therapists in our elementary schools through Center for Children. I know Kelly Hall has worked to make that happen as well. We are looking at other grant funding to support work in our elementary schools through the Safe to Learn grant. So we are trying to expand that as well.
Well, and recognize that this also then increases capacity of other staff, counselors, pupil personnel workers, school psychologists.
Sure.
This grant itself, this is a fairly creative use of the money, and that the STOP grant is the Substance Abuse Treatment Outcome Partnership. So the money comes from this desire to curb the opioid addiction and addiction in general, and how do you ultimately curb addiction and substance abuse? You start with children, you identify the source, the root of something that might draw them to risk-taking behavior, and you begin working with them. So that's why really we focus on the high school and the middle school, because that's where we find some of the origination of some of this very self-destructive at-risk behavior, suicidal ideations and things such as that. And by putting this kind of resource in our secondary schools, we will be able then to reallocate the current staff that's really embedded in that work right now.
Mm-hmm. The trauma-based cognitive behavior therapy training that's going to go on, will that be limited to these 8 individuals, or will other staff members be able to participate as well?
So, yes and no. I know it's complicated. So, trauma-focused CBT therapy, the training that comes with that it's multifaceted. So there is a 2 full-day participation in the very beginning of the school year. There is a mid-year 1-day full follow-up training with the provider. In addition to that, every single month there are 2 hour-long phone calls with the trainer to provide ongoing therapeutic support and training for cases. That is limited to, I think it was 10 or 12, I have to go back and check the exact number, 10 or 12 people. You can have more participants in the training. The supervision that comes every single month, at the end of that, you can actually become certified to be a trauma-focused CBT therapist. That will be specific to the 10 to 12 folks that can do that. But the training itself can adapt to some of our psychologists that are, that want to participate, or our PPWs who are in that like social work range, that have a master's level, a clinical type of field. They can absolutely learn from the information. I've been through that training. I'm trained in that training. It is an excellent way to break things down for students who have been exposed to trauma. And what we find is a lot of mental health is stemmed in trauma. That's why we looked at that. And trying to systemically go through and teach those skills in a very specific manner has amazing outcomes. And even if you don't have the certification, sitting in and listening to that training is very beneficial for the students that other folks in our jurisdiction will receive.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Loy. Thank you very much for, the turnaround time on this was very, very compressed, and then bringing it all together. It's, it's,
This was very quick.
yeah.
And I appreciate all of the work that Robin did to, take the process.
It is, yeah. It's just, again, it's a stunning piece of work, and it's going to make an incredible difference in the lives of children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. McCord.
I'm gonna run for my money for my last board.
Mr. Howard, you went under, not over, so, yeah. I was, yeah.
So before you are the April financial report. On the revenue side, we have collected $201.8 million, representing 91.57% of our budget. We have received 100% of the county appropriations and 83% of the state appropriations on average. On the expenditure side, we have encumbrances outstanding of $53.6 million. Year-to-date encumbrances and expenses total $214.7 million, representing 97.4% of our budget. There is one area of concern, and that is that we will have to bring before you, as previously mentioned, by the end of the fiscal year, a budget adjustment for categorical budget adjustment to address retirements for approved leave absences. Are there any questions?
No questions.
No questions.
No questions.
Thank you. To go last, doesn't it?
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, graduation next week.
Yay.
The next board meeting is on June 12th at 9 a.m. and we are adjourned.
Well, I will see you.